Search parties scoured the industrial complex, demanding that the fugitives be found and captured immediately. The hunters declared that the targets could not be far and ordered their immediate execution. Armed men swarmed through the warehouse stores as the pursuit of the fugitives intensified. Dokyum urged Yoon-sol to flee immediately while they still had a chance to escape. Overwhelmed by grief and terror, Yoon-sol cried out in a desperate refusal to leave. Clinging to the wounded Dokyum, Yoon-sol questioned the purpose of surviving if left alone. Dokyum offered a weary smile and suggested that they should perhaps face death together. Yoon-sol reacted with shock as Dokyum began to confess his true, honest feelings. A moment of tragic intimacy passed between them amidst the blood and the encroaching shadows. Dokyum admitted his overwhelming jealousy and his inability to see her with any other man. Yoon-sol resolved to die with him, prompting Dokyum to question if she had gone mad. Dokyum desperately commanded her to stop talking nonsense and run away to save herself. Dokyum reacted with sudden surprise as a firearm was leveled during their final tense standoff. Dokyum shouted in protest as Yoon-sol collapsed onto him, shielding him from the end. Yoon-sol whispered a desperate plea while holding onto the man she refused to abandon. Bleeding from his mouth, Dokyum expressed his final relief that Yoon-sol would at least live. Yoon-sol screamed Dokyum's name in agony as he finally succumbed to his fatal wounds. Tears flooded her eyes as she contemplated the tragedy of him dying in such a manner. A gaming interface appeared, offering a binary choice between joining him in death or seeking revenge. The player expressed total confusion as the game prompted her to choose a final path. Two divergent endings remained highlighted on the screen, awaiting a decision on the heroine's fate. Adjusting her glasses, the player groaned at the blatant death flag presented by the game. The player lamented another bad ending, frustrated that every route seemed to end in death. A sharp gasp escaped the player as she stared intently at her computer screen. Checking her laptop clock, she wondered how many hours she had lost to the simulation. She reflected on the tragic R-rated romance game, noting its reputation for being utterly gritty. Despite seeing dozens of bad endings, her stubborn streak compelled her to keep playing. Exhaustion and irritation filled the player's face as she stared blankly at her smartphone. She reviewed online comments discussing the game's high difficulty and its repetitive, tragic endings. Resting her head on her hand, she admitted she was unsure why she continued playing. The tragic, silver-haired Yoon-sol appeared on the screen, her eyes filled with sorrow. Yoon-sol turned a gun on herself, declaring it her ultimate act of love for Dokyum.
A notification confirmed her 26th bad ending as the sun set over the game's world.
The player questioned how many more times the lead characters were destined to die. She mused that dating a handsome gangster was a logical path to certain ruin. Narration described Dokyum as a dangerous underworld boss who brought death to those he loved. The player wondered why she spent her time on such a frustrating, male-led carried disaster. Collapsing onto her bed, the player sarcastically noted that it was supposed to be a special day. A lonely birthday meal consisting of seaweed soup and a single cake slice sat nearby. Dejected, the player lay in the dim light, staring at her phone with an empty expression. Scrolling through a list of work and marketing alerts, she scoffed at her lack of greetings. She sat up abruptly, mocking the idea of her birthday being a cheerful or special occasion. The player began drinking a beer, attempting to drown out her loneliness and frustration. Flushed from the alcohol, she continued to grumble about the miserable nature of her special day. Surrounded by a fiery aura of annoyance, she screamed her disdain for the holiday. Checking the time again, she noted there was a long way to go before a new ending. A sudden wave of intense dizziness and physical distress struck the player at her desk. The player slumped over her laptop, losing consciousness after a night of drinking and gaming. Memories of the game's tragic romance flickered through her mind as the world went dark. The scene returned to Yoon-sol's final act of love within the virtual gangster-filled underworld. The player wistfully desires to experience the intense kind of love depicted in the game. She finds herself gazing at Seo Dokyum, wondering about the dangerous man from the screen.
A sudden realization strikes as the dark-haired man stares back at her with intensity.
Stunned by the proximity, she finds herself lost in the fine details of his face. Reality shifts as she realizes she is no longer at her desk, but in class. Confused, she notes the simple class motto hanging on the wall of the unfamiliar room.
Panic sets in as she stares at her own hands, realizing her body has changed.
Finding her name tag, she realizes she is Becky A and wearing a school uniform. Looking in a mirror, she is shocked, but admits her new appearance is quite pretty.
She cycles through various stages of denial, common to those who suddenly find themselves transmigrated.
She stares at Seo Dokyum, unable to believe she has actually entered the virtual world. A notification confirms she has entered the world of the gritty romance game Gangster Love. Her heart races as Seo Dokyum leans in, staring directly at her name tag. She panics, wondering if the dangerous male lead has already taken an interest in her.
A system interface begins loading over the black-haired man as she watches in total confusion.
A notification announces that the baby gangster Seo Dokyum is now aware of Baek Yihei. Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, she lets out a loud scream in the classroom. Looking closely at the screen-like overlay, she identifies it as a functioning game status window. The interface reveals that Seo Dokyum is feeling a sudden sense of interest in her. She freaks out, realizing that being noticed by a gangster lead is a death sentence. The teacher enters to dismiss the class while students complain about staying later than others.
Desperate to avoid her fate, she begs for a way to escape this dangerous situation.
She worries that being marked by the male lead will only lead to certain disaster. A digital map appears, highlighting the fastest route toward her parents' friend's house. She walks through the city streets, feeling the weight of her new reality and uniform.
After finding no trace of the game in the computer lab, she accepts her predicament.
She determines that the status window is her only guide in this treacherous new life. Her character profile reveals she is a transfer student who recently lost both of her parents. Walking alone, she reflects on the tragic backstory of the supporting character she now inhabits.
She laments possessing a character whose fate seems just as doomed as the original heroine.
So Do-kyum suddenly appears at her side, sternly pointing out that she is going the wrong way.
Startled by his sudden presence, she reacts with a vulgar outburst and swings a punch.
A system alert warns that Seo Do-kyum is displeased, making her fear an immediate bad ending. Without another word, the black-haired man ignores her and continues walking down the street. She stands frozen, surprised that he didn't react with the expected violence after her outburst. The system commands her to follow him, revealing that their paths home are exactly the same. She follows him from a distance, terrified by the realization that their lives are now intertwined. They arrive at a destination and she is relieved to have reached the house. Men in suits bow deeply, welcoming the young master back to his massive gated estate. She stands in total shock, unable to comprehend the scene unfolding at the mansion's entrance. Seo Do-kyum stops and turns around, questioning why she is standing there instead of moving. Anxiety peaks as she stares at his back, realizing the proximity of the underworld boss. He impatiently commands her to come inside the house already, leaving her completely stunned. Horrified, she realizes that the house she is moving into belongs to the male lead. A large black dog barks at her, adding to her terror as she tries to enter. The guards welcome her by name, causing her to shriek in fear at their intense greeting. In a desperate panic, she tries to claim she is actually someone else named Baek Oh-han.
The men are left in a state of total confusion by her bizarre and defensive behavior.
A warning appears stating that Seo Do-kyum finds her attempt at a joke completely unfunny. She is mortified as he reveals that he already knew the truth about her arrival. Baek Hee follows Seo Do-kyum inside, wondering about his father's minimal role in the original game. A sharp gasp escapes Baek Hee as she looks toward the grand staircase in shock. Seo Do-kyum enters the mansion as the guards bow, casually announcing his return to the household. Baek Hee stands nervously in the foyer, looking up as a man's hand grips the railing.
Seo Do-kyum confirms her identity as she introduces herself while realizing he is the male lead's father.
Resting his chin on his hand, Seo Do-kyum observes the interaction with a look of utter boredom.
So Do-kyum heads upstairs, his presence lingering as he leaves Baek Hee alone with his stern father.
Pausing mid-stride, the dark-haired youth looks back with a piercing and intense gaze from his red eyes.
Standing before her, Seo Do-kyum confirms her name again while Baek Hee recognizes him as the boss.
Seo Do-kyum descends the stairs, leaving no doubt in her mind that he is a powerful underworld figure.
Leaning close, Seo Do-kyum notes her resemblance to her mother, fueling her internal panic about his identity. Overwhelmed by confusion, Baek Hee demands to know how he could possibly have known her late mother. Panicking internally, she considers the possibility of her parents being gangsters while Seo Do-kyum mocks her scatterbrained nature. The stern man introduces himself as Seo Do-kyum, his expression unreadable as he stares directly at her. He acknowledges that the situation is overwhelming and explains that this is no ordinary household for her.
Seo Do-kyum informs her that staying in this house is the unavoidable requirement of her parents' will.
Staring back at him in silence, Baek Hee processes the reality of her new, dangerous living situation. He assures her that she will be comfortable as long as she behaves on her assigned floor. Dropping her hair in distress, she panics at the thought of being surrounded by dangerous, threatening gangsters. She frantically worries about the cost of rent, desperate because she has no money for such luxury.
Seo Do-kyum expresses confusion as a subordinate whispers that the girl is actually worried about paying rent. Denying being a loan shark, he offers free residence, but Baek Hee remains deeply suspicious of his generosity.
She attempts to flee by claiming she needs to think, but he reminds her she is homeless. Seo Do-kyum reveals that he sold her house, causing Baek Hee to fall into a pit of despair. She screams at him in a desperate protest, questioning his authority to sell her home without permission. Faking a smile, she bids Seo Do-kyum farewell for the day and agrees to go inside for now. Walking away, she reflects on the absurdity of the gangster romance world she's now forced to inhabit. Her internal monologue continues to obsess over the ridiculousness of a gangster selling someone else's house. Visual glitches surround Baek Hee as she continues to process the shocking news of her sudden homelessness. A system notification officially updates her status to a homeless vagrant after the sale of her house. From above, the men watch as she stands frozen, completely overwhelmed by the notification and her situation. Collapsing to the floor, she curses the world and the unfair power held by the gangster family. Walking past his father, Seo Do-kyum stops to ask if she is actually doing all right after the news. Shifting into survival mode, she brightly agrees to stay and follow her parents' will with a forced smile. She continues her over-the-top performance of obedience, frantically waving her hands to show her complete cooperation. Groveling humbly, she promises to reside there, prompting Seo Eum to note she is finally being reasonable.
Seo Ehyum commands his son to escort her to the room located directly next to his own.
So Do-kyum acknowledges the order while Becky Hae looks on with a nervous and apprehensive expression. In the elevator, she questions why they are using it just to reach the second floor of the house. She continues her confused questioning, unable to understand why they would use an elevator for such a short distance.
So Do-kyum points out her new room and instructs her to change her clothes and wait for him.
He delivers a chilling warning for her to behave, expressing his hatred for having his nerves rubbed wrongly. He departs as she shivers in terror, realizing she has fully caught the dangerous male lead's focused attention. With a shaky hand, she reaches for the handle to open the door to her new living quarters. The door swings open to reveal a massive, lavishly decorated bedroom fit for a high-ranking socialite or princess. Stunned by the luxury, she enters the enormous pink room and stares at the incredible interior design. Blushing with excitement, she exclaims in shock at the beautiful and expansive surroundings provided for her. She gleefully identifies the state-of-the-art computer, the king-size bed, and a giant teddy bear in the room. Shaking her head violently, she tells herself to stay focused and not get distracted by the sudden luxury. Dropping her backpack, she reflects on the dangerous reality of having successfully entered the male lead's home. Becky Hae begins researching on the computer, determined to gather all possible information on the game world. She recalls her final moments before transmigrating, which involved drinking and gaming until she fell asleep. A sudden realization strikes her as she connects her current situation to the night she passed out. Her past life flashes before her, revealing her inner desire to experience a grand cinematic love story. She panics at the thought that her own desperate wish might be the cause of her transmigration. She questions if she is destined to date the male lead and compares her sanity to webtoon characters. Confusion sets in as she realizes the character she inhabits never existed in the original game storyline. She notes the similarities between her real appearance and this orphan character, feeling the settings were intentional. She wonders if this specific role was custom-made for her, given how perfectly the backstory fits her life. She questions how her parents became entangled with the gangster family since the game focused on the heroine. A grim vision depicts the male lead entering the underworld early following the tragic death of his father. She recalls a scene where the original heroine listened to the male lead reflect on his painful past.
In the memory, the male lead reveals his father was murdered by a spy during his high school years.
The timing of the murder fills her with dread as she realizes she is currently in that period. She looks at the father, realizing the game prologue skipped over his life before his inevitable demise. She fears for the father's life, knowing his death will send the male lead down a path of ruin. Silence fills the room as she sits at the desk, burdened by the knowledge of the coming tragedy. She ponders if she has the power to change the future and prevent the male lead's father's death. A loud noise startles her as a black-haired youth bursts into the room, making her jump in surprise. The boy insults her for freeloading and wasting time on the computer immediately after moving into their home. Offended by his abrasive attitude, she glares at the boy and wonders who he thinks he is. She recognizes him as the youth who was watching her from the staircase when she first arrived earlier. He aggressively demands to know who authorized her to live with them, invading her personal space with hostility. He tells her to leave and stay out of their business, but she retorts that he's a rude brat. She stands her ground and threatens him while he continues to yell at her to get lost immediately. A hand stops the boy's aggression, and Seo Do-kyum appears, chiding his brother for using such foul language.
So Do-kyum ignores the drama and asks why she hasn't changed out of her school uniform yet.
The boy calls for his brother while she realizes he is definitely So Do-kyum's younger sibling.
The younger brother complains about her hostility, but Seo Do-kyum points out his brother is just as bad.
So Do-kyum ends the argument by telling both of them to come downstairs because everything is prepared. Becky Hae remains in a state of confusion, wondering what exactly they have prepared for her downstairs. A grand banquet table laden with expensive food and a large strawberry cake awaits them in the dining room. Her eyes sparkle as she asks if they normally eat such incredibly luxurious and high-quality meals. The father dismisses the lavishness as special for today, instructing her to sit down and join the family. So Do-kyum pulls out a chair and reveals that it is her birthday, leaving her completely speechless and shocked. The father explains the timing coincided with her arrival and encourages her to eat well and feel better. Overwhelmed by their unexpected kindness, she sits down at the table and tries to process the bizarre situation. So Do-kyum watches her intently as she takes her place among them, his expression unreadable as always. The group gathers as the boy brings the cake closer while she begins to cry from the unexpected gesture. Tears stream down her face as the warmth of a shared meal and birthday celebration touches her deeply. She eagerly takes a large bite of the cake, her sadness momentarily forgotten as she indulges in the dessert. The high quality of the food amazes her, and she reflects on the literal taste of luxury in every bite. The younger brother watches her eat with visible shock, asking if she has been starving for several days. So Do-kyum stares at her in silence as she continues to eat with a ravenous and unbothered appetite. A system notification reveals he is amused by her gluttony, comparing her to a happy, well-fed puppy. The father tells everyone to start eating and reminds her to consume some actual food alongside the cake. She reflects on how long it has been since she shared a meal with other people like this. While the family eats, the father signals that he has an important announcement to make to the group.
Enjoying her drink, she thinks about staying in the house as a quiet shut-in and avoiding further danger.
The stern boss looks at the two teens and prepares to deliver his news to his son and ward.
A formal announcement within a floral frame declares that they will have an engagement ceremony next spring.
Baeki-hye is completely blindsided by the shocking news and spits out her water in surprise. So-yeol reacts with extreme disgust as Baeki-hye begins to choke and cough from the revelation. She frantically questions where this came from while Seo Do-kyum calmly admits he already knew about it. Standing up in a desperate protest, she yells that this is honestly the first she's heard of it. Seo Iham remains calm while eating, stating the engagement was decided before either of them were born.
She questions her role as a fiancé and wonders what happened to the original heroine, Ye Yun-sol.
She argues against adults deciding their lives and claims she values personality over a person's physical looks. Seo slams the table, furiously demanding what she thinks is wrong with his brother's personality. They continue to shout, with her calling the family a burden and him demanding she leave immediately.
The father's gaze turns ice cold as he delivers a single, sharp command for absolute silence.
Silence falls over the room as So Ihum tells So-yeol that he is being far too loud. He scolds his son for shouting at the dinner table and demands that he mind his manners.
Seo-yeol looks visibly crushed and dejected after being silenced by his father's harsh, stern reprimand.
Baeki-hye reflects on how the father is being significantly harsher on his own son than her.
Watching the boy look down in sadness, she realizes he must be feeling quite hurt right now.
Seo explains the engagement is a formality and they will be free to choose their own lives. While the brothers eat in silence, she wonders if she can even manage to swallow her food.
She notices that Seo-yeol has become completely silent while reflecting on his current emotional state.
She observes the younger brother's sad expression, noting how the stern reprimand affected his mood.
Under a full moon, the girl sighs that this whole situation is becoming incredibly exhausting.
In her room, she brushes her hair and laments becoming a minor who can't even have beer. She stops brushing, suddenly worried about whether her original self is dead or just asleep in reality. Closing her drawer, she decides to push those thoughts aside and make survival her top priority. Looking at her reflection, she resolves to stay uninvolved as a side character and live quietly.
Looking back at the birthday feast, she reflects on how she originally planned to run away immediately. She reconsiders her feelings, touched by the fact that they gave her such a special birthday celebration. Baeki-hye looks down thoughtfully, realizing this was the first truly special birthday of her life.
A sudden knock on her door startles her, and she wonders who would visit Philate.
A voice from outside the door asks her to come out for a second if still awake.
She recognizes the speaker as Seo Do-kyum and walks toward the door with a curious expression.
So Do-kyum stands at the door, telling her it's nothing major, but he wanted to talk.
He explains his brother's behavior and tells her not to let Se-yeol's attitude bother her. She blushes at his handsome face, thinking his late-night visit is a foul move against her heart. She asks why he came all this way, but he moves closer, causing her heart to thump. So Do-kyum leans in close and tells her to lean in close and tells her to meet him tomorrow right after her school ends. She stares up at him in silence, her heart pounding loudly as they stand together. The scene shifts as she admits they were preparing for their upcoming engagement ceremony. She realizes this is part 2 of her birthday as the father tells her to buy anything. She follows behind him as they walk through a luxury clothing store filled with high-end fashion.
Baeki-hye calls his name and he turns back to ask what she wants from him.
She asks for a spending limit, but he says she can buy whatever her heart desires.
A mischievous plan forms as she decides to spend so much that he'll forget the engagement.
So Do-kyum casually shows her a black credit card and confirms he's serious about the offer. She holds the card with both hands, feeling her heart flutter at his incredibly generous words. She gleefully declares the start of her operation to get herself disqualified as a potential fiancé.
Wearing pixelated sunglasses, she boldly tells the shop clerk she'll take absolutely everything in the store. The clerk reveals the massive total, leaving Baeki-hye stunned by the sheer cost of her request.
So Do-kyum requests a single payment while she looks at him in complete and utter disbelief.
She frantically tries to cancel the purchase, admitting she thought it would only cost thousands.
So Do-kyum questions her reaction after she acted like she would swipe the card for everything, while Baeki-hye thinks tens of thousands of dollars is crossing the line and the brand's pay-to-win is too much.
Baeki-hye suddenly pauses as a new realization or thought strikes her during their shopping outing.
Walking through the luxury store, Baeki-hye asks So Do-kyum why he came along and if he is buying clothes too, but he says he is not.
Seo Do-kyum explains he simply has free time and it would be a pain if she happened to get lost in the large store. Baeki-hye blushes, interpreting his cold but helpful behavior as typical tsundere consideration found in male leads.
Choosing an outfit, she thinks he acts like a male lead before a mobster while calling out Seo Do-kyum's name.
Sparkling with joy, Becky Hae thanks him for looking out for her and excitedly heads off to try on her first outfit.
So Taekyum tells her to go ahead while a system notification warns that a new issue has been detected.
Becky Hae peeks back to tell him to stay right where he is and wait for her to return.
Holding his phone outside the dressing room, Seo Do-kyum tells her to stop stalling and just come out already. From behind the curtain, Becky Hae enthusiastically reveals herself and asks him how she looks in her new clothes.
Seo Do-kyum remains silent as he looks at her, seemingly struck by her transformation in the elegant white dress.
Surrounded by a floral aura, Becky Hae admits she feels a bit awkward and asks if the dress actually suits her. So Do-kyum is left momentarily breathless, only managing to let out a short, quiet gasp as he stares at her.
A system notification announces that the baby mobster's heart is fluttering for the 17th time upon seeing Becky Hae.
Becky Hae demands a better reaction while he asks if she will buy the dress only if he says it suits her, to which she agrees since it's his father's money.
He looks away and admits it suits her in its own way, causing her to light up with happiness at the compliment.
Pleased with his approval, Becky Hae decides to take the outfit and wear it out of the store immediately.
So Do-kyum tells her to try on as many as she likes while a notification shows his heart fluttering for the 18th time.
As the sun sets, she reflects on how she feels like she has truly become the youngest daughter of the Seo family. The driver informs her he will depart soon after a call, and she politely tells him to take his time.
Sitting in the luxury car, Becky Hae happily remarks that she feels great, as if she finally received a proper birthday present. She thanks him with a bright smile, thinking that living with this pseudo family might not be so bad after all.
So Do-kyum watches her in silence as she expresses her genuine happiness about the gifts and the day.
He tells her to thank his father instead, but she insists on thanking him for waiting for her all this time.
Looking at her with a soft expression, he says that if she is satisfied with the day, then that is enough for him.
Becky Hae is taken aback as he adds that providing that much for her is the least he should do.
He clarifies his kindness is because she is a guest his father asked him to treat well, shifting the mood.
A sudden, sharp realization hits Becky Hae as she processes being referred to as just a guest. The word guest echoes in her mind, creating a sense of distance despite the day's events. Becky Hae turns away, trying to understand why that specific word felt like a sting to her heart. She wonders why she is so bothered, telling herself it makes sense he treats her well only because she is a guest.
Snapping back to reality, she feels a surge of frustration and anger at her own fleeting, sentimental thoughts.
She sarcastically thanks him for drawing a clear line, thinking to herself how much he acts like a typical male lead.
The sun finishes setting over the grand mansion, marking the end of their eventful birthday shopping trip. Entering the house, she thinks Seo Do-kyum is a constant headache who keeps pouring cold water on her peace of mind. So-yeol mocks her new outfit from the stairs while Seo Do-kyum orders the guards to take her bags to her room. Se-yeol clings to his brother and complains about him being exhausted while Becky Hae watches with visible annoyance.
The father looks down from the balcony and tells the teenagers to join him for dinner since they have arrived.
During dinner, she observes the chaotic family dynamic and resolves to blend into this bizarre reality from her favorite game.
So Do-kyum presents a fresh plate of beef and asks her how she would like her meal cooked.
Seo demands the same VIP service while she blushes, feeling the special treatment is more than she expected.
She eats quietly, remembering her role as a side character and the need to make a safe exit eventually.
Relaxing after a long day, she lets out a satisfied sigh while soaking in a luxurious bubble bath.
She beams with joy in the tub, declaring that this successful, rich lifestyle is exactly how she wants to live. She thinks retail therapy is the best soul cure until she is suddenly startled by a voice calling her name.
Becky Hae's daydreaming face is caught in a silly expression as the scene shifts away from her luxurious home life.
Her teacher yells at her for not paying attention in class, causing her to jump and apologize profusely.
She laments being scolded as Seo Do-kyum stares at her, prompting her to snap at him for watching her.
The teacher scolds the entire classroom, warning them all for slacking off just because the school vacation is approaching.
The man warns the students not to get lazy just because school vacation is approaching soon. Becky Hae realizes she forgot about vacation because she was so spoiled by her luxurious life.
A vision shows the father dying, a tragic event that originally happens before summer vacation.
She is horrified remembering this happens right before summer vacation in her second school year.
While traveling in a car, Becky Hae silently promises to protect the father from death. She vows to prevent Seo Do-kyum's corruption and extend her own life of luxury forever.
Becky Hae suddenly pauses her typing as a new realization strikes her during the car ride.
She wonders if Seo Do-kyum might avoid becoming a criminal if he stays on track.
So Do-kyum sits quietly in the back seat, looking remarkably calm and composed for once.
She blushes slightly while thinking that a future without his corruption doesn't sound too bad.
Fearing the original heroine's arrival next year, she panics and questions what she is thinking. So Do-kyum repeats that she is just a guest his father asked them to treat well. Becky Hae shakes her head vigorously, telling herself to snap out of her romanticized thoughts.
She reviews the storyline on her phone, recalling the father was killed by a household spy.
She theorizes the spy is a close aide pretending to be a loyal servant at home.
So-do-kyum leans in and asks what she means by needing to save his father.
She panics and hides her phone, claiming it is nothing since the man is currently alive.
She yells at him for snooping while frantically trying to talk her way out of trouble.
To cover her tracks, she boldly declares she is actually interested in his handsome father.
So-do-kyum stares at her with a blank, utterly confused expression after hearing her shocking claim. The driver is bewildered as she gushes about how handsome and young the father looks. So-do-kyum questions her worry while she realizes a logical explanation will not work here. She decides to give an insane answer, claiming she is worried about becoming his new mother. So-do-kyum is frozen in complete silence, stunned by her bizarre and unexpected claim about marriage. The car swerves wildly as the driver yells at his boss to stay calm and focused.
The driver asks if everyone is all right after the car nearly crashed from the hap.
The driver scolds her for being incredibly rude to the young master sitting right beside her. Panicked, she denies being serious and begs them not to worry about her crazy joke.
She apologizes and explains she just meant he's handsome, which seemingly relieves Seo-do-kyum's concerns.
She sighs with relief, realizing she has gotten far too comfortable joking with the male lead. Returning to the spy mystery, she focuses on finding the culprit among the father's hates.
She suspects the spy must be someone very close to him, like a personal household sumbit.
The driver stares ahead with a cold, stern expression as he continues driving them back home. Back at the mansion, she worries about how to prepare for a strike from the spy.
So-eum approaches her and asks why she has been thinking so seriously lately.
The man asks if school went well today, but she is too preoccupied to answer normally. She looks at him with pity, knowing his tragic fate in the game's original timeline. Seo-eum looks at her with a questioning expression, asking if something happened at school today. She suddenly warns him to watch out for the spy and keep the threat in mind. She immediately panics, fearing he will think her warning is nothing but complete and utter nonsense.
He surprises her by agreeing to keep it in mind, leaving her stunned by his response.
He tells her to go get changed for dinner while walking away down the long hallway.
A close-up shows the man's shoes as he walks away toward the rest of the house.
The driver watches them from the shadows, his stern face showing clear suspicion and unreadable intent. Baeki-hye stands in the doorway, wondering in disbelief if the man actually believed her warning.
Suddenly, she is blinded by a bright light as a status window appears before her eyes.
She shields her eyes from the intense, glitchy system notification that feels different from the usual.
She is shocked to see a new quest window has appeared for her to complete suddenly. She considers this an opportunity to achieve the goal she had set for herself from start. She is terrified by the strange rewards and the scary penalty of a potential bad ending. Baeki-hye stares at the screen, determined to clear the quest to solve all her problems. She believes that finishing it will finally eliminate the root of all evil in her life. A bright blue light flashes as she watches the glitchy status window from a distance. She finds the timing unsettling and wonders why she was possessed into this specific story world.
Baeki-hye shouts at the air, demanding to know if someone is watching her every move.
She is frustrated by the silence, wondering why nothing has appeared after her dramatic, sudden outburst. Resolved, she decides to beat the quest to uncover the truth about returning home or staying.
Suddenly, she hears a loud noise and looks up with a nervous drop of sweat.
She accuses the unseen force of provoking her and using extra rewards to fuel her motivation. In a tiny comical form, she throws a tantrum about needing to save the mister.
Seo-eum sits reading the newspaper, touching his ear because it feels like it's itching.
Baeki-hye points her fingers like guns, declaring she will definitely save the mister no matter what.
Seo-eum enjoys his morning tea and calmly remarks that the mother, Seol, agrees with his father, while Seo-do-kyum asks how many sugar cubes he should add.
So-yeol claims coffee is best when bitter, while So-do-kyum drinks his in quiet silence. The man asks if Baeki-hye is still sleeping as the teenagers enjoy their breakfast together.
So-do-kyum hears a rapid running sound and looks startled by the sudden, loud approach. So-do-kyum barely calls her name before a red object is swung violently toward his father. Seol stands up shocked, asking if she is insane while she wields a giant mallet. Holding a large squeaky hammer, she stares intensely, noting that he actually managed to dodge it.
Baeki-hye comically pummels the father with the hammer, claiming he's gotten much more agile lately.
She leans in close to the man, cheerfully insisting that all of this is for his sake.
A dark aura surrounds her as she tells him to see it as an investment.
She waves goodbye and leaves while So-yeol shouts after her in a state of disbelief. So-yeol pleads with his father to stop her, claiming she hasn't been right lately. A flashback labeled Case 1 shows a foot narrowly dodging a sudden and aggressive stomp. Seo-eum dodges an attack near a pillar, looking startled by the girl's sudden aggression. The father turns around with a sharp look, reacting to her unexpected and very swift movement.
Baeki-hye gives 2 thumbs up, happily complimenting him on being pretty agile during their encounter.
Case 2 reveals a teddy bear holding a knife wedged into the crack of a door.
Se-eum enters a room asking why she called, only to dodge a falling armed toy.
The teddy bear with the knife lies on the floor near the man's expensive shoes. Seo-eum stands with his back to her, letting out a short, tired sighing sound. Peeking from behind him, she happily admits it's annoying, but she is actually quite satisfied.
Case 3 shows Seo Eum pulling out a chair at the formal dining room table. He looks down with a bead of sweat, sensing something suspicious lurking under the table.
A hand reaches out from the darkness under the table to grab his legs suddenly.
Baek-hee laughs creepily from under the table, praising his amazing ability to dodge her.
A text box explains how she hid under the table and scared him half to death.
Seo tells his father that if she continues like this, she'll just keep causing trouble. The father tells him to leave her alone, believing she will eventually tire herself out.
Seo Do-kyum watches the scene silently with a serious, unreadable expression on his handsome face.
Baek-hee walks down the hall, asking the man if he wants some evening training.
She suddenly stops and looks surprised as Seo Do-kyum appears right in front of her.
He stands in her path with a silent, intense stare, causing her to stutter in confusion.
Seo Do-kyum leans in close and bluntly asks if she is crazy or just acting.
He orders her to stop doing weird things to his father before she gets hurt.
She tells him to mind his own business, lamenting the sorrow of being a side character. She rants about being a disposable plot device while Seo Do-kyum looks completely baffled by her.
She invites him to train with her, but he flatly refuses, having zero interest in participating.
Seo Do-kyum advises her to prioritize her own physical health over her current strange activities.
He tells her to stop reading delusional novels while she reacts with utter shock and disbelief.
He departs while a status window identifies the stoic black-haired youth as a baby gangster.
A thought bubble expresses intense frustration that he is worrying about trivial things while dying. She stomps away in a huff, warning the young man that his survival is at stake.
Seo peeks from behind a wall to get his older brother's immediate, focused attention.
Seo admits that the girl's strange warnings about their father have been deeply bothering him. He asks his brother if it is possible their father is in some actual danger.
Seo Do-kyum dismisses his concerns, confidently stating that nothing bad will happen to their father.
Seo questions why their father is letting her run around talking about internal spies. Seo Do-kyum asks his younger brother to keep a very close eye on the blonde girl. The blonde girl walks through the mansion alone, unaware of the growing suspicion surrounding her.
Seo Do-kyum watches her depart with a very serious and unreadable expression on his face.
A report on the mansion's exterior confirms that no internal spies have been discovered yet.
Inside his office, the father reviews a plan to strengthen security despite the lack of evidence.
A man in a suit concludes his formal report while standing before his seated boss.
Noting the lack of progress, the boss dismisses the assistant from his private office immediately.
The assistant pauses at the door, asking if he may ask one final serious question. The boss looks up from his desk as the assistant brings up the blonde girl's name.
The assistant bluntly asks his boss how much he truly trusts the girl staying with them.
The boss asks for a clear explanation regarding the assistant's sudden and pointed line of questioning.
The assistant questions if the boss is withholding information beyond her father's friendship from him.
He expresses concern about her position as a fiancé and the potential threat she may pose.
The boss shuts down the suspicions, vouching for her background and dismissing the assistant again. The assistant sighs as he leaves the office, encountering a purple-haired woman in the hallway.
Team leader Chae Il-young greets the man, stating she has an urgent report for the boss.
The assistant lets her into the office as she formally announces her arrival to the boss.
The boss is surprised that her overseas assignment wrapped up earlier than originally scheduled. She hands over a personnel report, mentioning she returned early after hearing some surprising news.
He reads the report and comments on the lovely young lady who recently joined the family.
He looks at Chae Il-young and asks if she has already performed a background check.
She admits she was already aware of the girl's existence before she moved into the house.
She questions if the girl is an appropriate match, but he tells her to stop judging.
He tells her the timing works out as he planned to introduce them to each other.
He explains that the girl is currently alone and likely very hurt after losing her mother.
The boss notes that she reminds him of Chae Il-young when she was much younger. Chae Il-young agrees to go greet the girl before the evening gets any later today. The boss dismisses her with a thanks as the sun begins to set outside his window.
Chae Il-young stands alone in the hallway, looking away with a cold and unreadable expression.
She looks back toward the office with a sharp, suspicious gaze as she walks away. A pixelated notification appears, urging the girl to protect the master of the household immediately.
She searches the garden at sunset, confused that the man is not at the fountain.
The girl panics as evening approaches, knowing the vast grounds will make her search difficult.
She wonders if the man is avoiding her while a dark figure looms behind her suddenly. A shadowy man scares her, causing her to scream in terror at the sudden confrontation. She realizes it's the assistant and tries to laugh off her suspicious and frantic behavior. The assistant asks if she's planning to pull another prank on the chairman right now. She frantically explains she was just trying to help train the man's agility for his safety. He pins her against a wall, declaring he will get straight to the point, Mafar. He threatens her, stating he will deal with any threat to his family without any hesitation. The assistant warns Baek-hee that he expects her to understand the weight of his previous threat. Standing in the garden at sunset, the assistant walks away while ordering the girl to remember his words.
Left alone, Baek-hee stares in shock, wondering if she was just on the verge of being eliminated.
In a comical panic, she wonders if this mission requires her to risk her life to actually succeed.
She covers her mouth in fear, haunted by the assistant's terrifying aura and the bear spirit behind him.
Walking away, she grumbles about the dangerous boss and the chairman's ignorance while recalling her scary encounter.
A sudden realization strikes her as she stops mid-walk with an enlightened expression on her face.
She decides to check the boss's restricted study, a place she hasn't yet searched for the chairman. Looking up at the illuminated mansion balcony, she determines that now is not the time to be picky.
Clenching her fists, she prepares to launch a high-intensity surprise attack simulation, viewing life as a battlefield. 2 guards catch her and hold her back as she frantically pleads to go inside briefly.
The guards are horrified by her words and beg her to just go back to her room.
She shouts in frustration at the guards, claiming they have no idea about the actual situation at hand.
Her eyes widen in surprise as a new presence suddenly captures her full and immediate attention.
A woman in heels approaches the scene where the guards are still detaining the struggling blonde girl.
The guards immediately stop and bow deeply, formally greeting team leader Cha as she arrives in the hallway.
The purple-haired woman smiles elegantly, exuding a calm and professional aura while observing the scene.
Baeki Hei observes her, certain she would remember such a striking character if she were in the game. Cha E-young admits her curiosity about the girl whose beauty could rival a main character's while finally meeting.
The blonde girl blushes and offers a shy greeting, feeling flustered by the older woman's graceful presence.
Cha E-young orders the guards to disperse so they can have a private discussion, and they promptly obey.
She explains the study is restricted but is interrupted when Baeki Hei blurts out that she is pretty.
Embarrassed, Baeki Hei waves her hands and tries to backtrack, though she still insists the woman is lovely.
After the girl makes a silly excuse about breakfast menus, the team leader finds her question absolutely adorable.
Cha E-ryung leans in, suggesting they will meet often and asking the girl to bring questions to her.
Formally introducing herself as the one who serves the chairman, she asks to be called Team Leader Cha.
Baeki Hei reaches out to accept the introduction, repeating the woman's title with a dazed, blushing expression.
They share a friendly handshake as the girl expresses her excitement about working together in the future.
Cha E-ryung guides the girl back to her room, offering to discuss the breakfast menu along the way.
Baeki Hei remains determined to continue the chairman's training tomorrow despite the pleasant distraction of her new acquaintance.
She wonders why such a stunning character was relegated to a background role in the original story's world.
A hopeful thought bubble expresses her strong intuition that the team leader will become a powerful new ally. The scene shifts to school, where a teacher's voice notes that the girl has been spacing out lately. Standing outside the faculty office, Baeki Hei receives a warning to be more careful and attentively agrees. Walking down the hall, she worries that time is passing while she struggles to protect the chairman. She pauses by a window, noticing something unusual happening outside on the school grounds below. From the window, she sees several black sedans parked outside with men in suits standing nearby. She identifies the men as bodyguards, but initially mistakes them for thugs before correcting her internal thoughts. Leaning against the window, she mutters to herself about the sturdiness of the glass while observing the cars.
She looks startled as Seo Do-kyum appears to notice her watching him from the school building's window. A memory of the assistant's cold threat about protecting his family flashes briefly through her anxious mind.
She suspects the guards are actually monitoring her movements rather than just providing protection for the family.
Frustrated, she wonders why the status window has been completely silent regarding her current mission progress lately.
She comically punches at the air, demanding the invisible system say something to her immediately. She turns around in surprise, coming face to face with Seo Do-kyum, who has suddenly appeared behind her.
Looking at the black-haired youth, she reflects on how she felt his presence from the very beginning.
Seo Do-kyum stares at her with a flat expression, bluntly calling her behavior seriously and utterly ridiculous.
She feigns an attack while insisting her actions are entirely for the sake of protecting his father.
He lets out a tired sigh, weary of hearing the same strange excuses from her once again.
He walks away with a final order for her to behave herself as she watches him leave.
Baeki Hei stops Seo Do-kyum in the hallway, insisting that she has an important question.
The blonde girl maintains a firm, desperate grip on the black-haired boy's hand. Looking back with a weary gaze, he asks her what she wants to talk about. She bluntly asks him to explain the assistant's exact role and position within their family. He questions her motives, but she insists getting closer to him is necessary for protection. He explains that the assistant stayed loyal during their darkest times, earning his father's trust.
Baeki Hei listens intently to the history of the man she currently suspects most.
She realizes that someone so deeply trusted would be the perfect candidate for a spy. She grabs him again, pleading for him to listen even if she sounds completely crazy. She mentions the dangers surrounding him while other students mistake her intensity for a confession.
She clasps his hand with both of hers, emphasizing the gravity of her next request.
Looking him in the eyes, she asks him to trust her just this one time. In a moment of realization, she worries that her approach was far too forceful.
Seo Do-kyum looks down at her with a quiet, unreadable expression for a long moment.
The blonde girl's hands tremble visibly as she waits for his response in the hallway.
To her surprise, he looks her directly in the eye and agrees to trust her.
Baeki Hei blinks in shock, unable to believe he actually agreed to her strange request. He clarifies that he is willing to set aside logic and believe her just once.
Overjoyed by the progress, a chibi version of the girl celebrates with pure, unbridled excitement.
He leans in close, noting there is something important he needs to tell her. He tells her to finally let go of his hand while students watch them closely.
Her face turns scarlet as a system notification notes her notoriety is rapidly increasing.
The system reports her aggressive grip while she screams an apology for the awkward situation.
The next morning, Becky Hay peeks out from her room as the sun begins to rise. Heading downstairs, she assumes the brothers are still sleeping and the chairman is already busy.
She resolves to commute to school alone today to avoid further embarrassment from yesterday.
She cringes while recalling how she held his hand in front of the entire school.
Eating her breakfast, she hopes that distancing herself will make the incident blow over quickly. A tall grandfather clock ticks away in the silent mansion as the morning hours pass.
She sits alone at the massive dining table, surrounded by the oppressive quiet of the room.
Looking around the empty kitchen, she wonders why the atmosphere feels so unusually still. The grand hallways of the mansion remain deserted, devoid of the usual security presence.
She worries when she notices that none of the organization members are around to greet her.
A sudden sense of dread washes over her as she scans the empty, quiet house.
Standing in the center of the hall, she asks herself what is happening today.
Red system warnings suddenly flood her vision, declaring the area to be extremely hazardous.
A bright red countdown timer appears as she stares in absolute terror at the system.
She clutches her ears in pain, overwhelmed by the sudden and deafening noise of the alerts.
Panicking, she fears she might die before she even has a chance to save anyone. She sprints up the stairs, desperate to escape whatever rough death the system is predicting. Racing toward the exit, she shouts her refusal to let the mission end like this. As the timer reaches its final seconds, she frantically reaches for the large front doors.
A hand suddenly grabs her shoulder from behind, making her think the spy caught her.
She collapses to the floor and screams in terror at the sudden physical contact.
She looks up with tear-filled eyes as a familiar voice calls out her full name. Seo-do-kyum stands over her, looking concerned and asking if she is all right. She blushes and gasps his name, visibly shaken by her own internal panic.
The red system warnings fade as the safety status is officially secured and threats released.
She reflects on how her mind went blank during the chaos, leaving her speechless. Still trembling, she clings to his shirt and whimpers while trying to regain her composure.
Becky Hai cries intensely, admitting she was scared enough to forget everything and sob loudly. Seo-do-kyum gazes down at her with a concerned look, asking why she is crying.
A hand tenses as someone lets out a weary, shaky breath following the intense panic.
The black-haired youth pulls the blonde girl into a hug, patting her back to comfort her.
He suggests she lift her head since her crying fit seems to have finally subsided.
Becky Hai pulls away from his chest, acknowledging his instruction to look up after her breakdown.
She thanks him for helping her calm down while blushing and feeling extremely flustered internally.
Seo-do-kyum asks what specifically happened to cause her such a sudden and intense state of surprise.
He asks if someone else was there, but she denies it, claiming her condition is poor.
She explains his sudden approach startled her because she is naturally a timid, cowardly person.
He suggests she stay home and rest, but she frantically insists on attending school today.
She nervously asks to commute together, thinking she might die if she stays home alone.
The black-haired youth remains silent, observing her desperate and trembling state with a neutral expression.
A close-up of a hand reaching out appears as he briefly acknowledges and accepts her request.
He tells her they must hurry because they will both be late for school at this rate. Looking annoyed, the youth reflects internally that the entire situation feels incredibly strange and potentially scandalous. Walking down the street, she laments the lack of car transport while another student watches them.
Seo-do-kyum tells the blonde girl to cling on to him, shocking her and the nearby student.
The brown-haired student suspects a honey trap, but Do-kyum explains that she is currently feeling sick. The student reacts with shock as the blushing blonde girl confirms she is indeed unwell today.
He shouts that she should rest at home instead of making him late for school.
Declaring he will go first, the frustrated brown-haired student stomps ahead of the quiet pair.
Becky Hay and Seo-do-kyum continue walking in silence, her expression nervous while his remains stoic.
He asks how she is feeling, and she replies that she is mostly fine aside from dizziness. He asks if she has anything to disclose, noting she looked absolutely terrified a few moments ago.
The blonde girl is startled by his observation, thinking to herself that he is surprisingly sharp.
She tells him not to mind her previous reaction and asks to stay close until school. He agrees to let her stay close and tells her to talk to him later instead. Linking arms with him, she realizes her plan to avoid him today has completely failed.
A close-up shows the blonde girl's hand gripping the boy's arm tightly as they walk together. Resting at home later, she reflects on surviving several death crises throughout her long, terrifying day.
A volleyball flies through the air as another student screams for the girl to dodge it.
Panicking, she realizes a hit would cause a concussion, but her feet are completely frozen.
Squeezing her eyes shut, she accepts her fate and thinks that everything is over for her. Someone suddenly catches the high-speed ball, shielding the terrified girl from the imminent and painful impact. She looks up in shock as a protective figure stands in front of her on the court. Becky Hay stares at Seo-do-kyum's back, wondering exactly where he suddenly appeared from this time. Racing up the stairs, she panics about being late while calling the others useless for not waking her. She slips on a puddle of water but is suddenly caught by the back of her shirt.
So Do-kyum scolds her for being so clumsy and suggests she should have left the house earlier. Sitting on her bed, she realizes she survived because of him, despite the lack of warning windows. She clutches her head in frustration, wondering if she should use the youth as a personal bodyguard. A sudden knocking sound at her bedroom door startles the girl during her moment of quiet introspection.
She peeks through the door, wondering if the black-haired youth has come to see her.
Team leader Cha offers a friendly greeting and apologizes for her sudden and unannounced evening visit.
Baek-hee asks why she is here, and the woman explains it is for a representative's favor.
Excited by the mention of the chairman, the blonde girl happily invites the purple-haired woman inside.
Red system warnings suddenly flood her vision as the team leader thanks her with a smile.
A bright red notification warns her to escape immediately or she will be murdered in 10 seconds. Baek-hee looks up in absolute horror as the smiling purple-haired woman looms over her. The system issues a lethal ultimatum, repeating that Baek-hee will die if she stays. The purple-haired woman smiles down at the terrified girl.
Standing in the doorway, the team leader announces she has finally found the blonde girl.
Baek-hee freezes in terror, realizing the smiling woman before her is actually a spy. The purple-haired woman requests a moment of her time while stepping deeper into the room.
Baek-hee bolts past the woman, her mind racing with the revelation of the spy's identity.
The blonde girl flees through the mansion as the system notes Seo Do-kyum's sudden arrival.
So Do-kyum appears in the hallway, calling out to the girl with an urgent, alert expression.
He catches her in his arms, and the life-threatening system warning is finally deactivated.
The black-haired youth holds her close, gently telling her to lift her head up.
Team leader Cha watches from a distance as the youth comforts the trembling blonde girl. The woman offers a polite greeting to the youth, addressing him as the first young master. So Do-kyum acknowledges the team leader while protectively shielding the frightened girl in his arms. The purple-haired woman questions the girl's state, but the youth explains he heard her screaming.
When asked if she is okay, Baek-hee panics internally, doubting she can ever be safe.
The blonde girl hesitates to expose the spy, fearing the consequences of a premature accusation.
Her hand trembles violently as she grips the youth's shirt, seeking safety in his presence. A silent, heavy gaze is exchanged between the youth and the woman in the hallway.
The team leader expresses her relief at the youth's arrival and decides to leave them.
She bids them a polite goodbye before turning and walking away into the mansion's shadows.
As the footsteps fade, Baek-hee peeks out from behind the black-haired youth's back. So Do-kyum startles the girl by asking her directly if the team leader is the spy.
He asks if her fear stems from the woman, noting her extreme reaction earlier that morning.
Baek-hee struggles with her confusion, unsure if she should reveal the dangerous truth right now.
She recalls his past words about the woman's long-standing loyalty and the chairman's deep trust. The girl worries that as a newcomer, she will be the only one deemed suspicious. Despite her fears, a spark of resolve appears as she decides to trust her intuition. She pleads for him to believe her sincere request just this one time from her heart. Looking her in the eyes, the youth agrees to set aside doubt and believe her. A single word confirms his agreement, sealing their new and fragile alliance against the spy.
Baek-hee stands tall, firmly asserting that her claim about the spy is absolutely correct.
She identifies Cha Il-ryung as the traitor and feels relieved that he finally trusts her.
A sleek black car speeds through the city streets under the cover of the night. Cha Il-ryung drives through the glowing city, her expression cold and devoid of her usual smile.
The purple-haired woman remains silent as the city lights reflect in her determined, vengeful eyes.
A memory surfaces of her younger self mourning her parents at a traditional funeral altar. In the flashback, she cries out that the official report of the accident was a lie. She sobs in despair, convinced that a hidden truth lies behind her parents' tragic deaths.
A mysterious man in a suit approaches the grieving girl and asks if she wants answers. The young woman looks up in shock as the stranger looms over her in the darkness.
She asks for the identity of the killer while looking up from her knees in tears. The man reveals the name of the culprit, blaming Seo Il-hum for the devastating tragedy. A chilling directive tells her that he is the man she must take her revenge on.
Returning to the present, the woman stares ahead, fueled by a long-held desire for retribution.
She makes a phone call while driving, her face illuminated by the car's interior lights.
She confirms her arrival to someone on the phone, stating she is going to see him.
The mansion stands silent under the stars, with a single light glowing in an upstairs room.
A youth in a blue shirt arrives home and is greeted by bowing mansion guards.
He sighs and grumbles about a long school meeting, unaware of the chaos unfolding inside.
He stops at the foot of the stairs when Baek-hee calls out to one.
Baek-hee stands on the stairs, her expression filled with utter confusion regarding the mention of hierarchy.
The student in the blue shirt explains his late arrival and questions why the pair is together.
Looking surprised, the boy in the blue shirt asks if their father is still at the office.
So Do-kyum mentions a staff meeting while Baek-hee suggests they visit the company office immediately.
So Do-kyum offers reassurance about their companions while Baek-hee questions the need to visit the president.
A man in a suit approaches the confused student as they walk through the mansion hallway. Spotting the man in the suit, Baek-hee urgently calls out to him by his man. Becky Ye frantically asks about the chairman's whereabouts while the suited man begins to explain the situation. The suited man explains that the chairman stayed behind for an urgent meeting with the team leader.
Becky Hay reacts with extreme shock, pointing out a discrepancy in the team leader's reported work schedule.
Looking nervous, the suited man clarifies that the meeting was a sudden addition to the original schedule.
The boy in the blue shirt expresses confusion while Becky Hay is visibly consumed by intense dread.
The black-haired youth is instructed to stay while the younger boy refuses to eat during this crisis.
Sojo Kyum commands the suited man to drive them to the company headquarters without any further delay.
A firm hand suddenly grips another, signaling a moment of desperate urgency and unspoken shared determination.
Sojo Kyum tells Becky Hay to stay behind for safety, but she immediately and firmly refuses.
Becky Hay grips Sojo Kyum's hand with even greater intensity, refusing to let him go alone.
With a look of fierce resolve, Becky Aya declares her refusal to wait passively while danger looms.
The pair runs toward the exit while the frustrated student and the suited man shout after them.
Protective guards suddenly block the doorway, preventing the determined pair from leaving the mansion as they planned.
A heated argument erupts as the guards demand proof before acting on Becky Hay's alarming warning.
Becky Hay falters, struggling to provide the concrete evidence needed to convince the skeptical and cautious guards.
Stepping forward, Seo Do-kyam silences the room by declaring his absolute and unwavering trust in the girl. The guard remains speechless as the black-haired youth and the girl decisively walk past him toward the car.
Seo Do-kyam leads the girl away while the guards call out in a final, futile attempt to stop them. Several vehicles speed across a brightly lit bridge, racing through the city under the vast night sky.
Becky Hay finds small comfort in the absence of system notifications, indicating the chairman remains alive for now.
Watching the city lights blur past, she silently prays for the chairman's safety during their desperate journey.
A moment of tense silence passes between the two as they sit together in the speeding vehicle.
So Do-kyum breaks the silence by asking the girl if she is feeling anxious about the situation.
Trembling with fear, Becky Hay questions if they should have pursued the suspicious team leader much earlier.
Seo Do-kyum attempts to soothe her with logic, but Becky Hay remains unconvinced and deeply fearful.
Overcome with emotion, the younger boy sobs while expressing his terrifying realization about their father's imminent danger.
So Do-kyum questions his brother's fear, suggesting that their father might actually be the more formidable opponent.
While the driver offers empty reassurances, Becky Hay remains determined to prevent a tragedy at any cost.
The group finally arrives at the imposing entrance of the corporate skyscraper where the chairman is located.
Standing in his office, the chairman calmly asks the team leader to state her business regarding the meeting.
The chairman stands with his back to the window, waiting for the woman to deliver her urgent message. Internally fuming at his calm demeanor, the purple-haired woman decides to stop the pretenses and confront him.
Dropping her professional facade, the woman finally demands an explanation for the tragic death of her parents.
The chairman responds with genuine confusion, asking the woman to clarify her shocking and sudden accusation.
Gritting her teeth, the woman reacts with bitter disbelief toward his request for a more detailed explanation.
A memory reveals the cold winter day when a young girl arrived at the chairman's home seeking refuge.
The orphan girl pleaded for a home while the chairman recalled her father's past association with another group.
The young girl explained her hatred for her father's former associates and her desperate need for a family. In the present, the woman screams that she is no longer a naive child fooled by his acting.
Brandishing a sharp knife, the vengeful woman lunges at the chairman while demanding a confession for the murder. Chaos erupts at the building's ground floor as the security team attempts to stop unauthorized people from entering.
An agitated security guard blocks the hallway, firmly reminding the persistent group that students are strictly prohibited inside.
The three students desperately plead with the guard for entry while he continues to demand official identification.
Seo Do-kyum commands the confused guard to step aside and let them pass immediately. Presenting an ID card, the youth identifies the group as the chairman's personal security. Standing in the lobby, the group identifies several floors where the chairman might be.
The black-haired youth explains that a large force might alert the target to flee.
He outlines a strategic plan for a phased arrival and asks if everyone understands.
The blonde girl nods in silent agreement.
Guards rush up the stairs under orders to radio in as soon as they find the boss.
A heavy metal door swings open. Becky Hay cautiously peeks through the door into the darkened office room.
So Do-kyum follows closely behind her, speaking her name to ground her. Trembling, the girl realizes her physical stamina is low and her survival was very lucky.
A sudden realization hits the pair as they witness a horrific scene inside the room.
Chai Yi-reng stands over the fallen chairman, holding a sharp knife against him. Blood drips from the chairman's hand as he barehandedly grips the blade to stop her.
The vengeful woman screams at the chairman to let go of the weapon.
Staring back with intensity, the chairman repeats her demand for him to release the knife. Tearfully, the woman asks for confirmation if he truly murdered her parents years ago.
He asks if she is truly convinced of his guilt after their decade-long history together.
She ignores his emotional plea, stating that their past relationship is no longer relevant. She demands an admission of guilt, citing his past rivalry with her parents' organization.
The chairman remains silent, his expression unreadable as he faces his accuser.
He tells the woman to go ahead and stop him if she is certain. Addressing her by name, the chairman tells Yi-ryung that he is giving her a chance.
The woman hesitates, her resolve wavering as she hears the chairman's calm voice. Gritting her teeth, she struggles with the weight of her long-held desire for revenge.
Becky A bursts into the room, screaming out for the chairman in a panic.
Seeing the bloodied chairman, the girl frantically cries out while rushing to his side. She feels immense relief because a mission failure notification has not yet appeared. Sobbing, the girl realizes the system remains silent, confirming the chairman is still alive.
She gently reaches out to the chairman, her eyes filled with tears of concern.
A notification shows his favorability increasing as he credits her training for his survival. The chairman smiles weakly, jokingly wondering if his physical agility stats have improved. Hidden benefits and more favorability points unlock as the girl beams at his safety.
The girl throws her arms around the chairman, who thanks her for her help.
So-do-kyum watches the touching reunion with a look of deep, silent contemplation. He looks toward the ceiling, seemingly confused by the strange turn of events. He informs his father that the traitor fled and asks him to release the girl.
Embracing the blonde girl, the chairman tells his son to leave her alone for now.
The younger brother bursts into the office, shouting for his father in total distress.
The boy screams in despair as he sees his father on the office floor.
Seo-do-kyum exhales a long breath of relief while the security guard watches them. The family shares a quiet moment of relief as the chairman embraces both children. The lead security guard reports through his radio that the boss has been found. A car speeds away from the corporate building into the busy night traffic. Driving through the city, Cha Yi-ryong sobs uncontrollably and curses her own failure. She ignores a call from a mysterious contact, calling herself a fool for her actions.
A man in a high-rise office notes that the communication line is currently disconnected.
He scoffs at the failed assassination attempt, mocking the perpetrator's lack of capability.
The mysterious man examines a file containing a photograph and information about Bae Ki-hye.
He stares at the girl's photo, seemingly intrigued by her unexpected role in the events.
Embracing the chairman, Bae Ki-hye cries as he gently speaks her name during their reunion.
A cheerful chibi character smiles while floating in a dark room filled with glowing blue crystals.
Standing before his silhouetted boss, the head security guard offers a formal and solemn apology.
The guard admits his failure to detect the betrayal happening directly under the security team's noses.
He offers to take full responsibility for the security lapse and accept any necessary punishment.
Bowing his head, the man states he would accept judgment even if cast out immediately.
The entire security detail bows deeply in unison, loudly shouting their apologies to the chairman. Standing by the window, the chairman firmly rejects the security team's request to be punished. He turns slightly, stating that the true burden of this entire incident lies with himself.
A blood-stained kitchen knife falls through the air after being released by a trembling hand.
The chairman's bloodied hand remains visible as the weapon clatters onto the floor in silence.
Looking down at the chairman, Cha Yi-ryong sighs and asks if he knows something secret.
She grimly observes that people always create regret because of their lingering and painful attachments.
She explains that her time with him became poisoned due to her parents' unsolved murder. The purple-haired woman pauses mid-sentence, looking away as she considers her final and most desperate move.
Crying, she tells the chairman to go ahead and kill her if that is his wish. The chairman declares that he will not hold any of the guards responsible for today's events. He warns that leaving the organization out of shame would be an even greater offense. The kneeling guards react with visible shock and apprehension to the chairman's stern, unwavering command.
He orders them to banish foolish thoughts and conduct thorough security screenings for every organization member.
He instructs them to track Cha Yi-ryong without engagement while prioritizing the protection of the children.
The lead guard acknowledges the orders, sweat beading on his face from the intense pressure. He offers one last deep bow, shouting that he is truly sorry for his incompetence.
Bae Ki-hye and So-do-kyum are eating snacks when the guard suddenly approaches their table.
He apologizes to Bae Ki-hye for wrongfully judging her and suspecting her of being a spy.
Standing up, the girl tells him it is fine and asks him to raise his head. She realizes he was only being scary to guard the chairman while he asks for forgiveness.
Laughing, she says they both just wanted to protect Mr. Em and calls it even.
So-do-kyum dries his hair, noting that the guard's information helped them find his father.
Bae Ki-hye tells the guard she is grateful, which leaves the man looking completely stunned.
The guard blushes and becomes emotional, touched by the girl's unexpectedly soft and forgiving nature.
He tearfully vows never to suspect her again while the group shares a lighthearted moment. So-do-kyum looks away with a slight blush, admitting that the outcome is a relief.
Bae Ki-hye and the guard turn in surprise, asking the boy to repeat his quiet remark.
He admits he is glad his father is safe and offers a rare, sincere thank you. Bae Ki-hye stares in total shock, her face turning bright red at his sudden display of gratitude.
She teases him for crying earlier because he was grateful to have a big sister.
The boy looks annoyed and turns his head away, blushing while ignoring her playful teasing. A peaceful night settles over the mansion as a chibi character appears above the rooftops.
Bae Ki-hye flops into her bed, cheering that her quest to save the chairman is complete.
She celebrates twisting the core plot of the prologue and earning the Seo family's gratitude. She wonders if she will return home now, feeling slightly sad about leaving her new family. A text bubble floating in the air confirms she wasn't lonely for a single moment here. She sits up and calls for the status window, demanding answers to her many urgent questions.
The system window appears, announcing that it is automatically detecting new information about Cha Yi-ryong. Baek Lee questions the point of receiving more information now that the crisis is supposedly over.
The screen reveals Cha Yi-ryung's role in the Baekhyun gang and that Yi-hae's data was exposed.
The girl realizes Yi-ryung was a spy for a mysterious group she has never heard of.
She reasons that since the chairman's survival is guaranteed, the tragic plot points are now derailed. With a confident smile, she concludes that the chances of a tragic ending are practically zero.
Baek Lee rages at the system for vanishing without answering her mountain of remaining questions.
Letting out a weary sigh, the girl decides to enjoy her hard-earned peace and sleep.
A sudden knock at the door reveals the black-haired boy requesting entry late at May.
Entering her room, the youth begins preparing a makeshift bed on the floor beside her. With a calm expression, the boy informs her that he is getting ready for bed.
He looks at her directly, stating his intention to sleep right there in her room.
The girl's face turns bright red as she reacts with total shock to his announcement.
She questions his sanity while he explains this close-range protection is necessary for her safety.
She scolds him for not guarding his injured father, but he remains completely unfazed.
Still blushing deeply, the blonde girl prepares to make a serious point to the young man.
She reminds him of the social impropriety of a man and woman sharing a room.
He acknowledges her point with a steady gaze, showing he is fully aware of the situation.
Flipping onto his side, he jokingly warns her that he will retaliate if she misbehaves.
Looking incredibly irritated, the girl fumes at his audacity and his ridiculous threat against her. Dismissing the argument, she turns off the light and tells him she doesn't care anymore.
Tucking herself in, she realizes her exhaustion has vanished due to his unexpected, rowdy presence.
She admits to herself that he feels like a real person rather than a character.
From the floor, the boy asks her how she managed to suspect the traitorous woman. He gazes toward the ceiling, confessing that the betrayal caught him completely off guard earlier. A memory surfaces of the chairman welcoming the purple-haired woman into their home years ago.
A younger version of the black-haired boy rushes into the room to greet his father.
The chairman introduces the woman to his young son, officially declaring her a family member.
The young boy politely greets the woman who would later become their organization's team leader.
The woman offers a quiet greeting, beginning her long history of service within the household.
He explains that the woman's betrayal deeply wounds the family she served for so long. Panic sets in as the girl desperately tries to explain away her supernatural foresight as intuition.
She laughs nervously while claiming she's simply picked up on a strange atmosphere earlier today.
He suggests she join their gang, a proposal she rejects with comedic and immediate intensity.
She questions why he is being so protective, wondering if his attention exceeds normal hospitality.
With a slight smirk, he clarifies that her troublesome nature makes her a special case.
She offers a sarcastic apology while secretly fuming because his assessment of her is accurate. Watching him, she realizes the boy possesses a surprisingly sweet and gentle nature for a gangster.
The room falls silent as the black-haired youth finally drifts off into a peaceful sleep.
Content with the peaceful outcome, the girl closes her eyes and follows him into slumber.
The boy reflects on her question one last time before finally surrendering to his exhaustion.
A strange, dark aura manifests in the room while the girl remains asleep in her bed.
Tossing and turning, the girl appears to be trapped in the grip of a nightmare. A terrifying memory of being trapped in a small, dark, and sweltering space resurfaces vividly. She cries out for rescue until a loud noise startles her awake from the traumatic dream.
Staring at the chandelier, the girl slowly realigns herself with reality after the intense nightmare.
She sits up, wondering why shocking events triggered memories she thought were long buried and forgotten.
Her thoughts are interrupted when she realizes how closely the boy is sleeping near her.
The youth is fast asleep, his face looking remarkably calm compared to his usual stoic demeanor. Panic flares as she temporarily forgets why the boy is currently occupying her bedroom floor. The girl realizes she must have tumbled off the bed during her frantic struggle with the nightmare. Despite the noise, the boy continues to sleep deeply, completely unaware of her sudden awakening. She questions the effectiveness of his guard duty given how defenseless he looks while fast asleep. She muses that anyone could easily kidnap her while her supposed protector remains lost in dreams.
Observing his peaceful feat, she hopes that changing the plot will allow him a normal life. She smiles, imagining him reaching a happy ending with the story's actual female lead someday.
Baek Lee rests her head on her arm, looking thoughtful as she wakes up in her bed.
So Do-kyum sleeps soundly on the floor beside her, his face serene in the early morning light. The morning sun shines brightly over the grand mansion as birds chirp in the clear blue sky.
The chairman reads the newspaper while questioning if So Do-kyum and Baek Lee are currently sleeping together.
The assistant confirms Seo Do-kyum's absence from his room while the younger boy at the table reacts.
The chairman decides their quiet cohabitation is fine given their upcoming engagement and requests his son's presence.
Shocked and blushing, the younger boy stands up to protest the chairman's seriousness regarding the planned engagement. The chairman's eyes narrow as he tells Yeol there is no reason for him to shop. The chairman insists the engagement depends on the couple's wishes, while Yeol demands his opinion be heard. Trembling with frustration, the youth laments how his father has prioritized Baek Lee since her recent arrival. Against a dark and swirling background, Yeol admits he hates his father listening to her first.
The boy storms away from the breakfast table, refusing to eat because he is feeling unwell.
The assistant suggests the chairman understand Yeol's perspective regarding his brother's sudden and impending engagement.
Flipping his newspaper, the chairman plans to redo Seo Dokyum's training while noting Yi-hae's innocent nature.
The assistant thinks that Lady Yi-hae has improved the mansion's atmosphere despite the recent traumatic incident. Baek Yi-hae and Seo Do-kyum sit together as a glowing aura signifies their strengthening bond.
Cars drive through the mansion gates as life returns to a sense of normalcy following the crisis. A chibi girl stands sweating inside a protective circle of stick figures on a pink background. Walking home, Baek Yi-hae questions why he keeps holding her hand while he asks who grabbed first.
Baek Yi-hae looks surprised as she pours water from a pitcher into a glass in the kitchen.
She teases the boy about attending break sessions while he currently tells her to mind her business.
She wonders if he has fully opened his heart, deciding she must be the understanding one.
During a tutoring session, she reminds him to review every mistake he made on his problems today.
She credits her past life's tutoring experience while insisting he work hard as his father requested.
She observes his focus, hoping that studying will lead him toward a future away from the gang. The summer sun shines through the window as cicadas buzz loudly in the bright blue sky.
A close-up of the window shows the clear sky and lush green leaves of midsummer. Baek Yi-hae comments on the heat and the loud sound of the cicadas during their study session. Whew, with a bright smile, the girl expresses her relief at how cool the indoor room feels.
She stares at the window, admitting she used to feel a deep fear and hatred of summer.
When he asks why, she explains it is a childhood story, but says she is fine now.
She decides to share her secret, noting that no one else in this world knows her history.
A chibi character stands in the dark while a text bubble mentions a past kidnapping incident.
Young Baek Yi-hae huddles in a dark, cramped closet, overwhelmed by the stifling heat of midsummer.
Clinging to her head, the terrified child struggles to breathe in the suffocating darkness of her confinement. She explains that the traumatic memory now surfaces whenever she is trapped in a hot, dark place.
Startled by his sudden reaction, Baek Yi-hae watches as So Do-kyum begins to gasp for air.
So Do-kyum clutches his chest, hyperventilating as he struggles to say the blonde girl's name.
Desperate to help, she asks him what is wrong and begs him to look at her.
He pants heavily, leading her to believe her story was too immersive and that help is needed.
With a sharp and intense gaze, the black-haired boy tells her to just stay exactly like this.
He asks if she remembers what he did for her, leaning in close with a serious expression.
Baek Yi-hae looks at him with realization, quietly confirming that she does indeed remember his actions.
A grayscale memory shows Seo Do-kyum embracing the girl to comfort her during a panic attack.
She hugs him back, acknowledging his effort and stating that providing comfort isn't hard to do.
A wall clock shows the passage of time as the afternoon sun casts shadows across the room.
Resting his head on her lap, the boy remains silent while she asks if he feels better.
She realizes he fell asleep after relaxing, then notes that her own leg is falling asleep.
Baek Yi-hae looks down at him, asking if he is awake while he rests his arm over his house.
A close-up reveals his slightly open mouth as he sleeps soundly on her lap in silence.
Baek Yi-hae reacts with sudden shock as she realizes something while observing the sleeping boy.
Sitting on the couch, she mentions that the kidnapper who locked her up was caught long ago and is no longer in this world, while Seo Do-kyum groans in his sleep.
From his sleep, the boy mumbles that he would have killed the man already, leading the girl to comment on his surprisingly violent sleep-talking.
A wide shot of the room shows the girl wondering if he was getting angry on her behalf after hearing her story. She reflects on how it feels to open her heart to someone until a loud shout interrupts her quiet thoughts.
Seo bursts into the room, accusing her of trying something while his brother is asleep, but she calmly denies doing anything at all. He accuses her of using a honey trap, but she teases him by asking if he thinks she's pretty, while the chairman observes them and Seo Do-kyum complains about the noise.
The chairman suggests the children have grown close enough for a beach trip tomorrow, and Mr. O agrees to prepare because the young masters and lady will love it.
Later, Seo wonders if he should have ramen for dinner, while Baek Yi-hae asks if he is looking for more ramen. He asks what she's doing at the stove, and she retorts by asking if he can't tell just by looking. Baek Yi-hae proudly declares herself the master chef of ramen for the day while showing off a package of instant noodles. He doubts her cooking skills, but she dismisses his attitude, telling him she's going to eat quickly and start packing.
When he asks what she is packing for, she reveals the plan for a beach trip tomorrow with the chairman, Mr. O, and the two of them.
Looking shocked and frustrated, the youth demands to know why he is hearing this news from her first.
She explains he missed the timing with his father by storming out earlier, but he accuses her of asking for the trip behind his back.
She asks if he hates the trip just because she suggested it, then tells him to stop joking around when he challenges her.
He suddenly grabs her arm and asks if she is doing this on purpose, causing her to flinch in surprise. Shaking her, he demands to know if the trip was decided just because she wanted it, while she tells him to stop shaking her since she couldn't decide that alone. He laments that his father cherishes her more since she arrived, but she suddenly screams as a hand slips near the boiling pot.
A close-up of the blonde girl shows her eyes widening in sheer terror as a disaster unfolds.
Boiling water splashes everywhere as the golden pot tilts and falls from the stovetop during their heated argument.
Baek Yi-hae hurls herself over the boy to shield him as the scalding water and steam erupt onto the kitchen floor.
The girl gasps in pain while her back shows severe burns from the boiling water she blocked for him.
So Do-kyum appears with an intense and horrified expression, calling out for Baek-hee after hearing the commotion. A red system window appears, announcing the success of a hidden quest to prevent the death of Seo-yeol. So Do-yum searches the mansion for her, mentioning he even rented a department store for her clothes until he hears someone sobbing nearby.
He turns a corner with a look of concern as the sound of crying echoes through the hallway.
Entering the room, he urgently asks Seo-yeol what happened, his face filled with worry and confusion.
Sobbing uncontrollably, the younger boy looks up at his brother with tears streaming down his face.
Through his tears, he explains that he accidentally spilled boiling water and that Baek-hee shielded him with her own body. Trembling, he shows that he managed to put an ice pack on her injury, though he remains completely overwhelmed by guilt.
So Do-kyum commands Seo-yeol to go get help immediately because they are going to the hospital right now. Seo watches with a devastated expression as his brother tends to the injured girl on the floor.
Looking up at Seo Do-kyum, the injured girl tells him not to cry while the younger brother continues to weep behind them.
So Do-kyum pulls her close, telling her not to move and to hold onto his shoulder while they wait for help.
He looks at her with an intense, questioning gaze, demanding to know why she would do something so reckless.
She weakly explains that she didn't even think because he's his little brother, so her body just moved on its own.
The black-haired boy reacts with a shocked silence, his expression hardening as he processes her selfless explanation.
The girl is startled when he suddenly reaches out to cover her mouth, her eyes wide with confusion.
He tells her that biting her lips in pain will only hurt her, so she should bite his finger instead.
Blushing deeply, she thinks to herself that he is insane and treating her like she is a child.
She remains flustered and tearful, internally complaining that he is overreacting to the situation as he holds her.
Mr. O and several other men in suits rush into the mansion, calling out for the young lady.
So Do-kyum strokes the girl's head and pulls her into a comforting embrace, telling her she held out well.
Seo-yeol sits alone on a sofa, looking utterly defeated and sorrowful as someone approaches him from behind.
Mr. O calls out to the young master, causing the boy to flinch in surprise as he sits in the dark.
Wiping his eyes, he tells the man not to worry about him and to go to Sister Baek-hee instead.
Mr. O informs him that she has already gone to the hospital with the chairman and that he can rest assured. He further explains that the chairman specifically asked him to stay by the boy's side to help calm him down.
Looking down with a heavy heart, the youth questions why they are still treating him with such kindness.
Mr. O offers gentle words of comfort to the dejected youth in the dimly lit room. A close-up of Seo-yeol reveals his tear-streaked face and eyes heavy with lingering guilt. He laments his actions, admitting he unfairly vented his frustrations on the girl who protected him.
Mr. O reacts with shock as the boy continues to punish himself for the kitchen accident.
Sobbing, the youth wishes he had taken the injury instead of letting her get hurt.
Observing the boy's immense sorrow, the butler notes that the girl must be deeply devastated.
The scene shifts to the hospital, where the injured girl lies resting peacefully under the covers. A close-up shows the blonde girl's eyes suddenly snapping open as she returns to consciousness.
Realizing she is in the hospital, she notes that the treatment was fast and relatively painless.
Looking around her surroundings, she's impressed by the luxury of her private, high-end room.
She questions why her right hand feels so heavy until she looks down in total confusion. She discovers Seo Do-kyum asleep beside her bed, still firmly holding onto her hand for comfort. He awakens and checks on her, asking with concern if she is finally fully awake now. He explains that her movement woke him, while she expresses regret that he stayed all night. She reflects on how he naturally stays by her side whenever she is in a crisis. He reports that her emergency treatment is finished, but apologizes for the small scar that remains. She admits she is bothered by the scar, fearing a future boyfriend might find it gross. Do-kyum reacts with intense jealousy, telling her to never date anyone who would judge her body.
She laughs at his overreaction, teasing him for acting like a protective father or older brother.
A system notification states Do-kyum is satisfied with her reaction, though she remains skeptical of him.
Noticing an unread notification behind him, she realizes she needs to swipe the window to see.
She stretches her stiff arms while the boy watches her with a grumpy and suspicious expression.
Reaching out, the girl attempts to interact with the translucent system interface floating in the air.
She is horrified by a notification claiming Do-kyum has felt nauseous 717 times around her recently.
Her eyes widen in shock as she tries to process the strange accumulation of his nausea.
She recalls seeing a similar notification with a much lower count during their previous shopping trip.
Offended, she glares at the boy, wondering why he apparently feels sick every time he sees her.
She reconsidered the notification, suspecting the nausea might represent a different, non-hostile feeling toward her.
He promises to visit often, but she immediately asks if they are still going to the beach. When he flatly refuses her request to go out, she pouts in frustration at his firmness.
So Do-kyum remains silent, looking at her with a serious and unwavering gaze during her recovery.
He covers her mouth with his hand, telling her to just listen and behave for once. He maintains his grip on her face while warning her not to make any weird noises. A knock on the door interrupts them as the chairman calls out to see if she is awake.
Brightening up instantly, she happily welcomes Uncle Ehim into the room with a wide smile. The chairman enters the room, his expression reflecting a mixture of concern and relief for her.
He expresses his shock over the incident while the girl apologizes for the trouble she caused.
He promises the best medical staff will prevent scarring, as he should be the one apologizing.
She smiles broadly, expressing her gratitude for being treated like an honorary member of the family.
So Do-kyum watches the interaction between his father and the girl with a silent, intense stare.
A close-up shows the chairman's bandaged hand resting gently on the blonde girl's head in comfort. The girl reacts with a look of sudden surprise as the atmosphere in the room shifts.
So Do-kyum pulls her into a sudden and tight embrace, causing her to scream out in shock.
He declares to his father that his protective hold is like a leash for her safety.
A system window warns that Do-kyum's levels of possessiveness and obsession have increased to abnormal status.
The interface displays a warning that the specific values of his new status remain undisclosed.
Do-kyum declares his intent to protect his brother's savior and provide her with special care personally.
Terribly flustered by the abnormal warning, the girl internally begs for someone to save her.
He reiterates his firm declaration to take special care of the girl who saved his younger sibling.
The chairman is shocked by the announcement, wondering if an engagement ceremony is being planned immediately.
The blonde girl stares with wide, blushing eyes as the black-haired man looms behind her.
In a stylized, flustered moment, Seo Do-kyum keeps a firm, awkward grip on the girl. Pulling away, Baek Lee-hae tells him to back off and questions why he is treating her like she is on a leash.
Turning to the chairman, she mentions she needs to rest for a bit, to which he agrees to step aside.
As she laughs awkwardly, Seo Do-kyum watches her with a silent, intense, and lingering gaze.
A few days pass at the Korea University Hospital as the recovery process begins in earnest. Sitting up in bed, Baek Lee-hae happily exclaims that her ice cream is incredibly delicious. Surrounded by treats, she reflects on how relaxed and peaceful hospital life is compared to the mansion. She notes that everything is brought to her while Seo Do-kyum delivers bags of eel and spicy rice cakes.
Lying back against her pillow, she joyfully declares that she wants to live like this forever. Staring at the ceiling, she begins to reflect on how her feelings have changed lately.
She realizes she has gotten used to being cared for, something she never imagined in her real world. Recalling the kindness of the family, she reminds herself that these people cannot truly become her own. She tells herself not to overstep her bounds just because she has become comfortable in their presence. Seo Do-kyum enters the hospital room and she is surprised to see that he has arrived so early. Holding a bag of takeout, the black-haired man suggests that they go outside to eat together.
Sitting in a gazebo, she expresses her excitement over the delicious-looking, spicy meal he provided.
When she offers to share the food, he declines, stating he is not into spicy meals. He sets a bottle of water down for her, and she thanks him for the thoughtful gesture. He calls out her name, prompting her to look up from her meal and ask what is on his mind. He mentions that Yeol feels very sorry, and she admits she understands given the boy's personality. She praises the spice level of the food while Seo Do-kyum checks his phone in silence. He looks at messages from Seo Yeol about visiting tomorrow and notes to himself that the boy is absent.
Outside the VIP room, someone notes that the situation is good as a door slides open.
Seo arrives with a cake, planning to slip away while his brother is busy with her. He admits to himself that he lacks the courage to face her and plans to apologize later. He is startled when Baek Lee-hae suddenly spots him and asks who is lurking near Mai. Panicked, he asks why she is back and where his brother is, learning Do-kyum already went home. She becomes excited after recognizing the famous cake, while the boy nervously avoids meeting her eyes. She teases him about the surprise visit, noting she thought he would not visit her even once. Blushing deeply, the youth stammers that he was only passing by and it is not what she thinks. She looks at him warmly, telling him she is glad he came and that it is good to see him. The younger boy clenches his teeth, his face flushed with an intense mixture of shame and emotion. He recalls Mr. O telling him that despite the cruel world, no one deserves to be hurt. The boy questions the idea of being precious as the butler explains that is why people save one another. Mr. O explains that the girl opened her heart to the family first because of her own losses. The butler admits he also found her unfamiliar at first, but is now deeply grateful for her presence. Looking at the youth, Mr. O asks if the boy did not feel that same warmth as well. The youth wonders how she bonded so quickly, and the butler suggests it is a special connection. Mr. O mentions the chairman had a message, and the boy urgently asks what his father said. The butler relays the message addressed to the chairman's beloved son, causing the boy to look stunned. A memory of the chairman standing by a window surfaces as his words echo in the boy's mind. Back in the present, the youth's eyes well up with tears as he processes his lingering guilt. Dropping to his knees, the boy sobs an apology to Yi-hae, catching her completely off guard. He cries that she is left with a scar because of him and repeats how sorry he is. She tells him to lift his head and thanks him for opening his heart despite his past behavior. Trembling and weeping, the young boy thanks her sincerely for caring about him through it all. A close-up of Baek Lee-hae shows her watching him with a soft and compassionate smile. She pulls the sobbing boy into a comforting embrace, telling him to stop crying and accepting his apology. She is shocked when a system window announces a hidden quest triggered by her protecting the boy. A system notification confirms that Baek Lee-hae saved So-yeol while she rejects the reward internally. The
The scene shifts to the hospital garden as patients enjoy the warmth of the setting sun. While taking a selfie, Baek Hee reflects on her gratitude for Seo Yeol finally opening his heart. After sending a rooftop selfie, she is surprised by how quickly the recipient reads her digital message.
She receives several overprotective messages warning her that being out alone at night is incredibly dangerous.
She recalls arguing with persistent guards and realizes that Seo Dokyum is even more protective than them.
Checking her phone, she finds a sweet message from Seo Yeol and finds his initiative quite adorable. The blonde girl wanders alone across the rooftop garden as the wind blows through her hair. While hugging the boy earlier, she wondered if the quest system would continue to follow her. As she contemplates her future strategy, her red hair tie slips and falls toward the path.
Looking down at the ground in surprise, she realizes she has lost her red hair accessory. A voice from behind catches her attention, prompting her to turn around and respond with curiosity. A friendly man in a hospital gown returns her lost hair tie, much to her flustered surprise.
After thanking him, she confirms they are fellow patients when he asks about her say. The man laughs warmly, explaining that he recognized her from previous visits to the rooftop gardens. He invites her to sit and introduces himself as Kim Chang-soo after she shares her name. She notes his extreme extroversion while polite introductions are exchanged between the two new hospital acquaintances. Observing his plain appearance, she internally categorizes him as a perfect example of a background character. He apologizes for his forwardness, explaining his excitement stems from his loneliness and lack of visitors.
Feeling a sense of shared experience, she reassures him that she understands how it feels lonely. An abrupt interruption from her guard hiding in the bushes startles her as her time ends.
She apologizes for her sudden departure, leaving the man disappointed that their conversation ended so soon.
She suggests they talk again later, jokingly referencing their shared status as supporting characters in this world.
As she calls out a final goodbye, the man remains seated on the bench in total silence. He finally waves back with a pleasant smile, confirming his desire to see her again.
The blonde girl hurries back inside the building as the sun begins to dip below the horizon.
A mysterious man in a hospital gown prepares to make a call as the atmosphere turns serious.
Removing his glasses, the man prepares to speak into his phone with a much more intense focus. He adjusts his hair, revealing a significantly more handsome and sharp appearance than his previous persona.
The discarded glasses sit abandoned on a railing, symbolizing the end of his simple disguise. Without his glasses and messy hair, the man reveals a strikingly sharp and calculating visual identity.
A small purple-haired character in a witch costume waves cheerfully against a bright white background.
Sitting on the stairs, the man examines a document about the girl and comments on her appearance.
Two conspirators discuss their plans over the phone, debating the necessity of involving the young girl. The man on the stairs confirms the plan with a cold and determined look in his eyes. He toys with his glasses while considering the best way to manipulate the situation for a reaction. Looking at her information, he orders his associates to prepare the next phase of their calculated scheme.
He dismisses the woman's concerns about his persistence, questioning if she has an issue with his methods.
The woman standing by a window warns him that harming the girl will result in absolute chaos. She explains that while the plan might draw out the chairman, the consequences could be very high. He laughs off the threat of the chairman's retaliation, finding the idea of a confrontation quite amusing.
The woman ends the call in frustration as he mutters a joke about his dangerous intentions.
The man stares at his phone with a sinister smirk, clearly enjoying the trouble he is causing.
Blissfully unaware of the danger, the blonde girl happily poses for a photo in the gardens. She holds up a tarot card depicting 3 wolves and a white puppy under them. The girl sighs deeply while examining the card, perhaps wondering about the hidden meaning behind it. The previous night, they discussed the fortune-telling cards, and she eagerly suggested trying them out together. The man feigns inexperience with the cards, asking for a moment to study the instructions. She realizes that her plan to simply exist until independence is being disrupted by strange feelings.
She finally understands that her mission is far from over as new quests continue to manifest.
Baek Hee reflects on Seo Dokyum's past overreaction and wonders if his intense protectiveness is permanent.
Sitting in the hospital garden, she questions her sensitivity regarding the hidden hierarchy quest she triggered. The man in the hospital gown encourages her to draw a card after learning the rules.
Choosing a card with a bright smile, she prepares to learn what her future might hold.
She asks about the meaning of the 3 wolves surrounding a dog depicted on the card. He explains that the warmth of an embrace depends entirely on her, leaving her in thought. Shaken by the accuracy of the reading, she realizes the wolves represent the intense Seo family members.
Seo suddenly appears behind her, startling her while she contemplates the tarot card's deep meaning.
The black-haired boy questions her presence on the rooftop instead of staying in her hospital room. She laughs while patting his head, teasing the blushing youth about his obvious concern for her safety. He reacts with indignation when she teases him about the fact that she is still taller. Seo Dokyum arrives and roughly grabs his brother, causing the younger boy to shout out in surprise. Surrounded by a dark aura, the older brother questions why she is petting a grown man.
She quickly claims it was just a game while noticing the man's familiar, intense gaze returning.
He instructs her to pack for tomorrow's discharge and come straight out without stopping for anyone.
The brothers explain they have a mandatory morning meeting, leading her to suspect heir-related business training.
He orders her to meet the staff tomorrow, making her wonder if this is daughter-in-law training. She attempts to refuse his overprotective plan to go home together after their corporate meeting ends.
He grabs her chin, declaring he is the one in control as her obsession level rises.
Her voice echoes across the hospital grounds as she shouts that the leash belongs on him.
A small, crying witch character clutches a stuffed animal during a brief scene transition.
Lying in bed that night, she prepares herself mentally for the long-awaited discharge day arriving tomorrow.
She feels a twinge of regret for not being able to say goodbye to Kim Chang-soo.
Determining to be polite, she decides to briefly greet her new acquaintance before leaving the hospital.
She falls asleep while reflecting on the man's loneliness and their brief but pleasant rooftop connection.
At 1 a.m., a system window activates an emergency quest to unmask Kim Chang-soo's identity before morning.
As she sleeps peacefully, a notification warns that failure will trigger a potentially lethal hard mode.
The sun rises on her discharge day. Find her pink luggage already packed and ready.
She finishes her final preparations and waits for the staff members sent by the CA family.
A close-up shows the blonde girl looking thoughtful as she prepares to leave her hospital room.
Examining the mark on her back, she considers claiming it is a tattoo of angel wings.
A man announces his arrival to escort her, and she hurriedly responds while putting on her jacket.
She opens the door with a friendly greeting, only to be surprised by the man waiting outside.
Noting a new face in the organization, she assumes he is just one of many staff members.
She asks the brown-haired man for a final favor before they depart for the CO company.
She requests to see Kim Chang-soo one last time, even offering to have the guard accompany her.
Suddenly, she is struck from behind with a heavy wooden board, catching her completely off guard.
A close-up captures her expression of pure shock as she is suddenly attacked indoors.
The brown-haired man catches her collapsing body, casually mentioning he did not intend to be so rough. He smirks while holding her, cruelly telling her that she will be resting for a long time.
A woman in a lab coat appears, admitting she used force to prevent any chance of escape.
The girl recognizes the voice as the woman claims to be an expert at managing such situations.
The man questions the status of the outside guards, learning they were incapacitated with a sedative drug. The woman explains that Seo Ihyum is busy while panels show the bound and unconscious security detail. Realizing she is being kidnapped, the girl struggles as a heavy drowsiness begins to cloud her mind.
The man removes his glasses and smiles, telling the unconscious girl they are going on a journey.
Waking up in a dark, cramped room, the girl cries out in despair at her suffocating predicament. She wonders why she is trapped again and why these tragedies continue to haunt her life repeatedly.
A sudden noise startles her, and she tearfully asks who is there as the door opens.
A silhouetted man stands in the bright doorway, prompting her to wonder how he found her location.
So Dukyum reaches out a hand as a desperate plea for salvation echoes in the dark.
Baek-hye awakens with a start inside a car, her mind immediately shouting for her protector.
The brown-haired man notes she is awake, explaining he didn't want to disturb her sound sleep.
She recognizes Cha Yeryong, realizing the purple-haired woman she met previously is part of this kidnapping. Strong hands clamp down firmly to restrain the girl as she begins to process her dire situation.
Cha Yeryong asks for their destination while the blonde girl frantically demands to be let go.
The man tells his associate to be gentle while the blonde girl questions his true identity.
He smiles broadly, asking if she has already forgotten the man who returned her lost hair tie.
He puts on his glasses, mockingly reintroducing himself as Kim Chang-soo to the horrified and confused girl.
Cha Yeryong mocks his childish roleplay, causing Yihei to realize this man is actually the group's boss.
A system notification warns that her personal information has been exposed to the leader of the Baek-young.
She confirms his status as Baek-young while the man gleefully acknowledges she has finally guessed correctly. A deafening scream of frustration erupts from the girl as she remains trapped between her copters.
She curses the crazy people around her, demanding they stop the car and let her off immediately.
She kicks the seat in defiance, questioning what significant change kidnapping an ordinary person could possibly achieve.
The girl laments her tragic life, listing her misfortunes from being an orphan to this current abduction.
He tells her to calm down for the sake of the expensive seats, but she rejects his concern.
Cha Yeryong admits she expected the girl to be in tears the moment she regained her consciousness.
The blonde girl retorts that crying is useless since the woman had already tried to kill her. Cha Yeryong pouts, expressing her disappointment that the girl had noticed the lurking danger so long ago. Yihei sits in silence, regretting the misplaced sense of kinship she felt for the man's fake persona.
She warns them not to expect a helpless victim, declaring her intent to report everything to Mr.
The purple-haired woman asks if she truly places her absolute trust in the character of Seo Ihyum.
The girl confidently confirms her total trust in him while the boss watches with mild amusement.
She warns that his loyalty is unwavering unless betrayed, urging them to release her for their safety.
Cha Yeryong looks away, quietly reflecting on how strange the current situation has become.
In a dim office, the woman scans through digital files, searching for a hidden truth about the past. A document confirms that Seo Ihyum possesses a solid alibi for the day her parents were killed.
Overwhelmed by her findings, the woman covers her face and sighs in frustration at the lack of evidence.
She stares into space, agonizing over the missing piece of the puzzle that continues to elude her. The car drives across a bridge as the sun reflects off the vast and shimmering blue sea.
The blonde girl is struck with sadness, remembering her unfulfilled promise to visit the ocean with others.
She mourns the fact she is seeing the sea alone until the boss interrupts with a call.
He holds out the vibrating phone, showing that Mr. Ihyum is calling and telling her to answer.
He encourages her to speak freely, even allowing her to disclose the details of her kidnapping without interference.
Despite fearing their plotting, she decides to answer the phone to prevent her family from worrying more. She answers the call with a trembling voice, and the man immediately asks if she is okay. Her eyes fill with tears as she hears his comforting voice, the weight of the situation hitting her. She tearfully explains she is okay and identifies her captors as Cha Yeryang and Baek Young. He reassures her it isn't her fault, explaining that they are already tracking the car's current location.
He apologizes for her suffering, but she quickly insists that he has absolutely nothing to be sorry for.
She sadly mentions being at the sea, the place where they were supposed to come together as planned. He makes a solemn promise to definitely go to the sea together next year, offering her hope.
The girl lets out a soft laugh through her tears, comforted by his words during the ordeal.
She continues to weep and sob into the phone, her relief clashing with the fear of her captivity. Sodakyum's voice suddenly cuts through the call, demanding that he be allowed to speak with her. He promises to save her the moment he sees her, his tone dropping to a dangerously low level.
He declares that once she is saved, she will never be allowed to leave, terrifying her with intensity.
Terrified by his possessive warning, the girl begs her captors to drive her far away from him. The car tires screech against the asphalt as the vehicle speeds away toward an uncertain and dangerous future.
So-yeol informs the group that the girl is currently held by Cha Yeryang and Baek Young.
Gazing at his phone, Seo Dokyum wonders why the rival organization specifically decided to target Baek Yihye.
Seo Ahyum explains that threats against loved ones are an inevitable part of the dangerous world they inhabit.
Gritting his teeth in frustration, Seo Dokyum seethes at the thought of such a grim and unavoidable reality.
So Dokyum vows never to lose anyone again, while So-yeol voices his strong support for his brother.
The driver of the vehicle solemnly agrees, noting that he shares the same protective sentiment toward the family. Seo declares with absolute certainty that their enemies will never be allowed to harm the blonde girl.
Surrounding himself with a dark aura, Seo Dokyum threatens to bury anyone who dares to touch her.
A man in a suit stands outside a shipping container, approving of the isolated location for their prisoner.
A thunderous crashing sound echoes through the shipping yard as a heavy object strikes the hard pavement. Baek Yihye groans in pain after being roughly thrown onto the metal floor of a dark shipping container.
Cha Yeryang apologizes for the rising hate while telling the girl to remain inside the locked container. Panicking as the exit is blocked, the blonde girl frantically begs for a moment to explain herself.
She promises not to escape and desperately reveals her severe claustrophobia while pleading to be let outside.
The girl screams in terror, fearing for her life as the heavy metal door is slammed shut.
She pounds on the door and begs for release, insisting she is truly dying from the suffocating enclosure.
Trapped in the oppressive darkness, the girl begins to feel a wave of dizziness clouding her mind.
She curses her situation, realizing that her repressed traumatic childhood memories are suddenly beginning to resurface.
She regrets ever becoming involved with the man whose presence brought this new nightmare into her life.
A red system warning appears stating that Baek Yihye is experiencing a life-threatening seizure due to trauma.
Reflecting on her protectors, the girl laments the possibility of her life ending in such a vain manner.
Distorted digital glitches and pink light ripple through the darkness as the girl's consciousness begins to waver. A sudden system quest appears, tasking the girl with escaping the truck to resolve her physical distress. The girl sarcastically criticizes the system's timing while reading the rewards for success and the penalty for failure.
She questions why the system is offering dating sim choices and expresses anger that her kidnapper is an option.
A mysterious message appears in a small window, prompting the girl to watch the screen with curiosity.
The system provides a cryptic hint suggesting she may eventually meet the entity behind the digital status window.
A recruitment advertisement for a manga translation group features a character with long, vibrant red hair.
The blonde girl stares blankly at the screen, processing the mysterious information delivered by the system interface.
The cryptic message repeats, emphasizing that a meeting with the unknown entity may be possible in the future. Kneeling on the floor, the girl asks the system to identify itself and clarify who is watching her. The girl resolves to take decisive action if the system continues to provoke her during this dire crisis. While blushing from fever, she considers her options and decides to choose Seo Ahyum over the others. Reaching out with a trembling hand, the girl finally selects the option to call upon Seo Ahyum.
A handgun suddenly manifests in a burst of purple light floating in front of the startled girl. The blonde girl stares in shock, instantly recognizing the weapon that has appeared within the dark container.
A memory flashes back to Ye Yoon-sol holding the same gun during a previous tragic and bloody timeline.
She notes the gun's connection to a bad ending and wonders why the system provided it now.
Gripping the weapon, she questions if the system is intentionally pushing her toward a tragic path of destruction.
She rejects the idea of a bad ending, confidently declaring her intent to forge a different, better path.
Steadying herself, the girl prepares to use the weapon to secure her freedom from the locked container. She vows that a crisis of this level will not be enough to force a bad ending. The girl aims the handgun at the ceiling and fires a shot directly into the door's locking mechanism. The recoil of the shot surprises her, but the bullet successfully strikes the target near the container's exit.
After serving its singular purpose, the handgun begins to dissolve into glowing purple digital cubes and particles.
Relief washes over the girl as the container door finally creaks open, letting in a sliver of light.
Peering through the narrow opening, she cautiously checks the situation outside to see if her protectors have arrived.
She spots Seo Do-kyum and his family facing a large armed group of rival gang members in the yard.
Looking at Se-yeol, she silently reassures the frightened boy that his older sister is still very much alive.
Seeing Seo Do-kyum's murderous expression, the girl begs for him to refrain from burying anyone in his rage.
Baek Gi-hae realizes she must escape the container immediately if she hopes to survive the ordeal.
Peering outside, she plans to reach the bridge and hide before reuniting with Seo Do-gum.
From the safety of a nearby truck, Cha Yir-young observes the shipping yard with a bored expression. Watching a security monitor, Cha Yir-young is stunned to see Baek Gi-hae running away through the yard.
She notes that the girl is far from ordinary, showing unexpected talent for a typical heroine.
Intrigued by the escape, Cha Yir-young decides to watch the girl for a little while longer.
High above the shipping yard, massive cranes loom over the site where the organizations have gathered. Baek-young stands firm, demanding to know what his rivals want from him during the tense confrontation.
A sudden scream pierces through the air, causing the men to stop their conversation and look away.
A bald man captures Baek Gi-hae, shouting at her for escaping while the boss is still talking.
The blonde girl screams and struggles, refusing the man's demand for her to return to the container.
Seo Do-jum lands a devastating punch on the bald man, instantly saving the girl from her captor.
Baek Gi-hae watches in disbelief as Seo Do-kyum suddenly appears and steps in to protect her. Moving with lethal speed, Seo Do-jum kicks another man away as he continues his violent rescue mission. The girl's face flushes with emotion, stunned that he actually arrived to help her in time. Seo Do-jum asks what they did to her, promising to kill everyone involved in her abduction. He whispers Baek Gi-hae's name, his touch lingering as he checks the girl for any physical injuries. He apologizes for her being scared while holding her face with a mixture of regret and intensity.
Baek Gi-hae stares at him with watery eyes, overwhelmed by the safety she feels in his presence.
She admits how terrified she truly was, letting out a heavy breath as her tears begin falling.
Seo Do-yum gazes at her with a dark and focused look, his protective nature taking a possessive turn. He pulls the girl into a tight embrace, telling her that everything is finally okay now.
As he holds her, his hands grip her hair and back with an intensity that suggests a deepening obsession.
A digital warning appears on the screen stating that Seo Do-jum's level of obsession has officially increased.
The system notification floats over the scene of their embrace, marking a significant shift in his personality. Baek Gi-hae weeps against his chest, completely unaware of the dangerous new status the system has announced.
Looking over the bloody shipping yard, Baek-young reflects on the surprising strength of the rival group members.
He wipes blood from his face, scanning the area for any remaining threats after the initial skirmish. Cha Yi-ryung remains seated in the truck, silently observing the aftermath of the girl's successful rescue.
Seo Yi-him comments on Baek-young's impressive skills while standing amidst several unconscious gang members.
I.M asks if they can talk, but the atmosphere remains hostile despite the temporary pause in fighting.
Baek-young demands an explanation for the childish hostage situation staged against someone from their own group. Inside the car, Seo sits with Baek Gi-hae as she lies down to recover from her trauma.
Seo Do-kyum stands outside the vehicle, his cold gaze fixed on the rivals who dared to target her.
Seo Yi-him admits that he used the girl as a threat to force a deal between the organizations. Baek-young stands over a fallen opponent, listening as Yi-him explains his motives for the abduction. Yi-him admits his curiosity about the girl's value led him to test her importance to their group.
He explains that he wanted Baek Gi-hae to serve as the bait for his upcoming business deal.
Baek-young listens stoically, asking for the specific terms and conditions that Yi-him is proposing.
Seo Yi-him demands that they give up the new headquarters project as the price for his cooperation.
He reiterates his desire to understand how precious Baek Gi-hae is to the group and to Do-gum. Yi-him challenges them to prove her worth by agreeing to his demands right here and now. He promises not to harm the girl again, provided they don't ignore his conditions for the deal. Baek-young notes that despite the bodies on the ground, Yi-him still speaks with incredible arrogance. I.M leans in close to Baek-young, promising to ask for his cooperation when they next meet.
Baek-young reflects on Yi-him's unpredictable nature, noting how different he is from his father's personality.
Seo Yi-him tells them to take their time deciding, showing no rush to finalize the agreement. He tells them to take care while leaving, but his parting words are met with a sudden interruption.
Seo Do-jum suddenly grabs EM from behind, declaring that their conversation is far from over yet.
Baek-young is stunned by Do-jum's silent and sudden movement, wondering how he managed to approach unnoticed.
Seo Do-jum glares with intense fury, promising that his rival will suffer for today's actions.
Held firmly by his collar, Seo Yi-him attempts to justify his actions by claiming no ill intent.
The scene shifts abruptly to Baek Hye lying peacefully asleep, her breathing steady and quiet.
A brilliant divine light descends from above, cutting through an expanse of heavy and oppressive darkness.
Resting within the pool of radiance, the blonde girl stirs and lets out a soft moan.
Squinting against the sudden brightness, Baek Hye awakens and questions her current and unfamiliar location.
Kneeling in confusion, the girl recalls being at the seaside just moments before arriving here. She gasps in surprise as she notices a strange presence appearing within the illuminated white void.
A pink-haired girl in digital attire appears, accompanied by a status window identifying herself.
Speechless, the blonde girl processes the mysterious entity's arrival while questioning if the site is real. A digital interlude reveals a recruitment message within the mysterious, glowing purple status windows.
Reaffirming her identity, the pink-haired entity stands calmly amidst a swirling vortex of digital data.
Baek Hye stares in awe at the strange being, struggling to find the right words.
Regaining her composure, the blonde girl demands to know the identity of the mysterious digital visitor.
With a casual snap of her fingers, the entity triggers a wave of sparkling magical energy. A system window announces the successful completion of the prologue, leaving the blonde girl completely bewildered.
The girl questions the term prologue while the entity explains that her recent trials were just the beginning.
While praising her for surviving a difficult section, the entity notes the girl's resilience throughout the ordeal.
Gesturing with a wave of purple particles, the pink-haired girl offers her formal congratulations to Baek Hye.
The entity remarks that winning over Seo Dojyeom and the entire family was a significant achievement.
Presenting digital avatars of the family, the entity praises her for raising their affection levels so effectively.
Baek Hye is shocked when the entity mentions her secret gaming history and wonders how she knows.
Offended, the girl asks if the entity believes she treated the family's kindness as mere programmed variables.
She insists that her feelings for the family and Seo Dojyeom became sincere and genuine over time.
Reflecting on Seo Dojyeom's smiling face, the girl emphasizes that their bond is based on real emotions.
The entity dismisses her sincerity as irrelevant, asking what actually changes even if her feelings are real. She bluntly states that feelings don't create real family bonds, prompting the girl to ask if she's done.
Baek Hye's hands tremble with rage as she asks if the entity is intentionally trying to provoke her.
She shouts that immersion was inevitable while living among real people, lunging forward in a sudden outburst.
The girl attempts to strike the entity, but her fist is stopped by a crackling purple barrier. Shouting that she already knew the truth, the girl is met with the entity's calm denial of provocation.
The pink-haired entity urges the girl to calm down so they can discuss the situation reasonably.
Demanding absolute clarity, Baek Hye asks the entity to reveal her true nature and purpose here.
Accepting the request, the entity prepares to disclose her identity and the reason for the girl's summoning. Identifying herself as the player, the entity reveals she has been observing and reading the girl's thoughts. She explains her limited influence over game mechanics while the girl reacts with horror at her lost privacy.
The entity addresses her main curiosity, prompting the girl to listen to the reason for her summoning.
Holding a mysterious silhouette, the entity explains her goal is to ensure the protagonist achieves a happy ending.
The blonde girl admits she expected the goal to be a happy union between the lead characters.
Claiming to be a power user, the entity promises to grant the girl's wish for a perfect conclusion.
Closing the distance, the pink-haired girl asks why Baek Hye looks so troubled by the proposal.
Baek Hye stares in silent shock, her face flushing as she processes the entity's overwhelming revelations.
A memory of Seo Dojyeom's embrace shatters like glass, casting doubt on the reality of her feelings.
The entity questions if the girl can truly manage a romance with the intense and dangerous Seo Dojyeom.
She suggests that success was only possible because the girl remained strictly within her side character role. Feeling trapped and uncertain, Baek Hye dejectedly asks what the entity expects her to do now.
The entity simply demands that they reach a happy ending that satisfies every person involved.
She reveals that they must adjust Seo Dojyeom's intensity to achieve the desired outcome for everyone.
Despite preventing many tragedies, the entity warns that Seo Dojyeom's abnormal and obsessive state continues unchecked. An image shows Seo Dojyeom holding the girl with a possessive gaze, emphasizing his growing darkness.
The narrative shifts to focus on the dangerous nature of obsession within this world.
In a brutal flashback, a black-haired boy delivers a powerful punch to a sunglasses-wearing man.
Standing in a desolate urban area, the boy looks down at the defeated man.
The pink-haired avatar warns that time remains before the main scenario begins, praising Ihai's management of Tokyo.
The system warns that death awaits if demands are ignored, showing bloody images of a doomed Dojyeom.
Dojyeom sits at a desk admitting he once envied others' love, but resolves to face his fate.
Ihai reflects on the intense nature of the Seo family members, particularly the gangster lead, Dojyeom.
Facing the light, Aya accepts the system's challenge, declaring her wish for everyone to be happy. The avatar approves of the choice, telling Ihai she should not feel bad about her decision. Promising a future reward, the avatar prepares to depart while attempting to change the current subject. Grabbing the avatar, Ihai calls her shameless for appearing so late after the uncle was saved.
Shouting at the digital being, Ihai questions if the avatar is even performing her job correctly.
Shaking the avatar, Lee complains about being mocked before the digital girl offers a different reward.
Lee demands a promise of no more mind reading, while the avatar remains silent under the pressure.
As she begins to glitch, the avatar ends the connection, ignoring He's demands for spoilers.
Lee screams at the vanishing interface, telling the system not to run away or use onomatopoeia. The digital space collapses completely as Lee desperately shouts for the avatar to be caught.
Waking up flushed and sweating, Lee groans as she returns to the real world.
Startled from her sleep, Lee looks up in confusion as someone calls out her name.
Dogyum looms over her bed, asking if she is awake while she stares at him blankly.
Confirming she is in her room, Dogyum explains she had a nightmare as Yeol calls out.
Dogyum offers to let her sleep more while Lee realizes that the entire family has gathered.
Trembling, Lee reaches out and admits to those gathered that she was truly terrified. Patting her head, Dogyum expresses deep relief at her safe return and admits his own worry.
Blushing under his touch, Lee softly thanks Dogyum for being there for her.
Sitting up abruptly, Lee asks about the brutal beach fight, but Yeol tells her to relax.
Uncle O explains that the organization handled the threat, and Yeol insists she shouldn't worry anymore.
Taking the blame, Uncle O reveals that a rival faction planned the kidnapping to target her. Uncle O dismisses the event as a minor dispute, but Lee questions why she was targeted.
Lee is frozen in shock as she processes being referred to as Dogyum's personal responsibility.
Dogyum explains the family would never ignore her being in danger, which is why they were targeted.
Tearing up, Lee repeats the word family as the weight of their bond finally sinks in.
Dogyum sits on the bed and confirms that she is officially part of the family under protection.
Deeply moved, Lee reflects on how she never expected to actually belong to a real family.
Overwhelmed by the sudden realization of belonging, Iha begins to weep openly. Comforting her, Dogyum promises to make sure she never has a reason to cry ever again. Dogyum acknowledges they aren't blood-related, but emphasizes that the family cherishes her as a special case.
Hugging him tightly, Lee cries even harder while explaining that she is simply feeling very grateful.
Noticing the time, Dogyum asks if she is hungry, and Lee admits she could use some food.
Yeol interrupts the emotional moment, calling them embarrassing, while Lee hopes this warmth will last forever. Watching the group, Lee resolves to repay their kindness by ensuring they all reach a happy ending. Lee decides she will accept any fate for herself as long as her family remains happy.
Smiling brightly, she dedicates herself to securing a happy ending for the gangster lead, Dogyum.
The scene shifts to the exterior of a high-end boutique and a professional photo studio. Standing in the boutique, Lee reflects on the miracle of taking a family photo in this life.
A system notification confirms that familial affection has been activated, leaving Lee feeling strangely uneasy.
Mocking the player, Lee wonders if the system will try to claim this moment as a reward.
Looking at her reflection, Lee admits that her feelings for Dogyum were never as simple as expected.
Hearing her name, Lee turns away from the mirror with a look of high-spirited surprise. Dressed in a formal black suit, Dogyum adjusts his tie and asks Lee if she is ready.
The massive Bake Group corporate headquarters towers over the city skyline under a clear sky. Inside a plush office, the nameplate of Representative Baek Young-jo sits on a desk as he calls for a visitor to enter.
Baek Young enters the office and reports that the conditions mentioned by the chairman have been successfully negotiated. Chairman Baek Young-jo asks if the matter concerns So him, and Baek Young confirms it is indeed about him.
Baek Young explains IH Construction's withdrawal from the project and the formation of a task force to take over.
Chairman Baek finds it suspicious that Seo Eum would agree to their terms so easily without a fight.
He asks if Baek Young found a weakness while the younger man looks at a photo of Baek Yi-se. Baek Young denies finding a specific weakness, standing with his hands clasped behind his back in a respectful pose.
Slapping the desk, Chairman Baek demands he find leverage instead of playing at corporate power struggles like a child.
He orders Baek Young to use both body and brain to succeed, even if it requires getting bloodied.
Chairman Baek stares with intense eyes, reminding Baek Young that he bears responsibility for the group's namesake.
Baek Young internally mocks the man for demanding violence while he stays comfortable and clean behind his desk.
A small, cryptic smile plays on Baek Young's lips as he faces his father's aggressive and demanding demeanor.
The chairman scoffs and notes that Baek Young's anxiety is a positive motivator for his upcoming corporate tasks.
Baek Young mentions an upcoming discussion regarding a faction merger with the Sinwon Group, shocking the older man.
He challenges the chairman, asking if the merger is truly meaningless when the Sinwon Group is practically involved. Baek Young reflects bitterly on being treated like a dog by his own father's corporate and criminal faction. A sudden, violent punch from Chairman Baek strikes Baek Young across the face, drawing a spray of blood. Shouting in rage, the chairman tells Baek Young that his face reminds him of his mother and ruins his mood. He reveals that Cha Yeol-young has been demoted to Baek Young's team rather than being exiled or killed.
Chairman Baek warns him not to fail again and demands he find the force to destroy the IHAM group.
Baek Young stumbles away from the desk, wiping blood from his mouth while requesting permission to leave.
A narrative thought bubble questions the identity and true nature of the boss leading the powerful Sinwon group.
Upon exiting the office, Baek Young is met by a woman who is visibly shocked by his injuries. She gasps at his bloodied face while Baek Young looks at her with a silent and weary expression. A young man complains about his appearance being awful while another man tells him to just take the photo. The photographer apologizes and offers to redo the young master's hairstyle while a suited man gives instructions. The photographer praises the eldest young master's looks and offers a free solo shoot, confusing Seo Dojam. Baek Yi-hae and Dojam's father prepare for a family portrait as the photographer gives directions to the camera. The father thanks Yi-hae for the photo, and she expresses her happiness at being considered part of the family.
Dojam's father remains silent for a brief moment, his gaze focused and unreadable during the photo session.
So Do-gyam asks Baek Yi-hae if she has been feeling better since the incident at the sea. Yi-hae cheerfully insists she is fine, noting her body is okay despite her lack of sleep lately. The father clarifies that he was asking about her mental state, acknowledging the trauma she recently endured.
Yi-hae mentions the truck incident, wondering if Do-gyam told him, but says she has mostly moved past it.
He reveals he actually heard about it from her mother years ago, leaving the blonde girl completely stunned. A soft memory of a woman's face flashes through his mind as she speaks a gentle term of endearment. He remarks that Yi-hae's smile constantly reminds him of her mother, softly speaking the girl's name with deep nostalgia. He suggests reconsidering the engagement to Do-gyam, but she playfully tells him to stay on his son's side.
A dark thought bubble notes that the engagement must be annulled to reach a happy ending with the heroine. Baek Yi-hae asks for an explanation regarding how her engagement to Seo Dogam was decided in the first place.
She requests to annul the engagement for both their sakes if it was just to honor her parents' wishes. She quickly clarifies that she doesn't dislike the family, only that she wants the best for everyone involved. The man admits the engagement was his own selfish decision, causing the blonde girl to stare in shock. He explains that the union was something he wanted for them even before her parents had passed away. He declares that her parents were his great benefactors and that he considers her to be his personal responsibility. Yi-hae sits in silence, processing the weight of the personal and emotional debt he feels toward her late parents. She notes that his explanation makes it sound like there is a deeper, more significant secret he is hiding. Yi-hae demands to know the truth about her parents' connection while resolving to face her own mysterious identity. He expresses his own desire to understand the trauma from her early childhood that she still cannot fully forget. The man begins explaining the day her mother hid her away in a cabinet. He recounts how she was concealed in a storage compartment while her mother hushed her. The blonde girl hushing herself inside the dark space was her mother's desperate best choice. Baek Yi-hae realizes the character's past in the game is eerily similar to her own. So Yi-hae reveals he was once kidnapped and threatened due to his connections with her. He describes how they were used as leverage, a situation that would break anyone's sanity. He explains they were overwhelmed by numbers, leaving her mother injured and them completely helpless. Her father begged the assailants for her location, offering any compensation to end the nightmare. The thugs mocked his pleas, focused only on finding the daughter his wife had hidden. A man in a light suit calmly states he wants something very specific and clear. Baek Yi-hae is horrified as he reveals that the object of his desire was his wife. Narration explains she became a hostage at a friend's request to protect her family's safety. So Em reflects on her reckless sacrifice, noting he had only just returned from abroad. He admits his wife and her father died together, sparking his indiscriminate, vengeful path. Overwhelmed by the tragic revelation, Baek Yi-hae declares that their families are ill-fated enemies. He clarifies that her father died saving his wife, while her mother saved Dojam's life. Stunned, Baek Yi-hae processes the truth that her mother was the one who saved Do-gyam. He decides not to disclose the rest of Dojam's story, deeming the past too heady. Baek Yi-hae silently wonders if she could ever avoid resenting them for the immense tragedy. A narrative realization settles in that the past within this story is heavier than imagined. Seo Do-gyam enters, asking what they are discussing, while Yi-hae remains lost in her thoughts. He notes her fever has broken and insists they leave, as mysteries must wait. Yi-hae agrees to go, her heart heavy with the weight of Dojam's unknown, painful past. The two stand in the brightly lit room, the air thick with unspoken emotional burdens. Later that night, Seo Do-gyam sits on his bed, annoyed by the staff's constant chatter. He reflects on the recent events, admitting to himself that they weren't entirely unpleasant. A vision of Baek Yi-hae's radiant smile flashes through his mind as he sits alone. He acknowledges the strangeness of his feelings, but sincerely wishes for her to be happy.
A somber expression crosses his face as he ponders the complications surrounding their lives.
He sits on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone with a focused gaze.
A digital prompt informs him that the person he is calling is currently unavailable.
Recording a message, he warns the recipient to think carefully about their past mistakes. He sternly commands the listener to never touch his family or Baek Yi-hae ever again. With an intense, red-eyed gaze, he delivers a final warning through the phone call. Narration highlights the deep entanglements of Baek Yi-hae's past within the world of the story. During a gathering, a young man comments on the effort everyone put in that day. A photographer instructs Baek Yi-hae to look directly into the camera for the final shot. Still distracted by her revelations, Yi-hae stares ahead with a stunned and vacant expression. Seo Do-gyam tells her to stop thinking and focus on the camera for the picture. She turns slightly, offering a soft smile as a hand rests comfortingly near her shoulder. The group poses for a formal family portrait, appearing like a united and peaceful family.
Narration describes the end of the prologue and the return of a deceptively peaceful life.
Baekgi-hye watches the snow from a classroom, noting that her past connections have vanished.
Seo Do-jum drops an English test paper in front of her, demanding that she grade it.
She accuses him of lying about finishing so fast, but he tells her to check. The test paper is covered in chaotic red scribbles rather than actual academic answers.
Horrified by the state of the paper, Yi-hye wonders what she is even looking at.
She questions his sanity while thinking he is definitely better suited for physical gangster work. Yul bursts into the room calling for them, as narration warns that this piece is fleeting.
Yul hugs his brother, suggesting he give up studying, while Yi-hye yells at So-dugum.
The three companions stand in the snowy street enjoying warm fish-shaped treats together.
Yul playfully asks if she prefers red bean or cream filling for the sack.
Yi-hye enthusiastically chooses the cream filling, much to the younger boy's surprise.
Do-jum shocks everyone by declaring himself on the same side as the blonde girl.
A close-up reveals a playful smirk as someone is teased for acting like a child.
Do-jum sternly addresses Yul, telling him to stop invading the blonde girl's personal space.
Yi-hye marvels at Yul's sudden growth while Do-jum maintains a protective, slightly annoyed distance.
Do-jum suddenly informs Yi-hye that she will begin intensive self-defense training upon returning home.
He explains the brutal military origins of Krav Maga while Yi-hye reacts with visible dread. Narrative text details her strict training sessions where Do-jum relentlessly corrects her fighting stance.
In a quieter moment, Do-jum accepts a snack from the girl, looking momentarily thoughtful.
Yi-hye encourages him to simply enjoy the food, her face beaming with a bright smile. A system notification reveals that the young man's internal heart flutters have reached an extreme.
Do-jum walks away abruptly to hide his embarrassment, leaving the others confused by his speed.
Yi-hye reflects on the changing dynamics, attributing the shift in their behavior to her presence. She ponders the difficulty of achieving a happy ending given her internal constraints and hesitation.
Do-jum calls out to her to hurry up as she wonders about his inexplicable fixation.
Close-up of Yi-hye's eyes as she tries to dismiss her complicated feelings as a phase.
She rationalizes that his interest will shift once he eventually meets the story's true heroine.
The family gathers for a lavish year-end feast, surrounded by festive decorations and warm light.
Everyone raises their drinks in a celebratory toast to mark the successful end of the year.
The older man praises Yi-hye for her positive influence on his sons and the household.
Yi-hye expresses her gratitude while hoping they will continue to accept her as she is.
A sharp scoff from Do-jum cuts through the air, creating a momentary spark of tension.
Yi-hye is startled by her own instinctual movement after accidentally dodging the young man's presence. A digital alert warns that Do-jum's obsession level has increased by another point during dinner.
Stressed by the notification, Yi-hye notes the alarming rate at which this specific stat is rising.
She worries about the obsession level reaching its maximum as the festive celebration continues around her.
Narration emphasizes her growing resolve to actively decrease this dangerous emotional statistic.
She concludes that attachments for a supporting character will only hinder the path to victory.
Under the table, she nervously moves her feet while planning to settle things before the plot begins.
Yi-hye thanks the head of the house for his hospitality and for curing her loneliness.
The two younger men react with amusement and slight confusion at her sudden sentimental outburst.
Do-jum affirms that she is family now, not a guest, while Yel continues to laugh.
The blonde girl laughs along, genuinely enjoying the warmth and fun of the holiday party.
The grand mansion stands tall under a starry night sky, radiating a sense of peaceful conclusion.
Later, Yi-hye rests on her bed, reflecting on the joy of the night's shared memories.
She realizes she must prepare for the new semester and her duty to the heroine.
Working at her laptop, she recalls the original game's events through the perspective of Ye Unsol.
A beach scene depicts the shadows of two people, suggesting a predetermined fate on the horizon.
A flashback shows Do-jum looking distressed as a silver-haired girl complains about his rough treatment.
A close-up highlights the red marks left on her wrist from his desperate, tight grip.
Do-jum collapses on the sand in despair, blaming himself for causing her pain yet again.
He begs the girl to stay away from him, fearful of his own destructive nature.
The silver-haired girl looks at him with a determined and unwavering gaze under the sunset.
She rejects his plea to be alone, comparing his defensive and angry attitude to a kitten.
Reaching out, she places a comforting hand on his arm to show her continued support.
Do-jum looks up at her with a mix of shock and longing, questioning why she stays. Standing together by the shore, she suggests their meeting was guided by an irresistible force.
Yi-hye lies awake, wondering if love requires something more powerful than just fate to succeed.
Baek-yi-hye gazes at the ceiling, resolving to leave once the leads find their happiness.
Checking her bank balance, she emphasizes the need to secure her own independent survival.
A digital countdown on her phone marks the remaining days until her upcoming 20th birthday.
Baek-yi-hye ponders whether she should start acting responsibly by finding a part-time job.
Seo Do-jum startles her by entering the room, questioning why she left the door open. He sternly declares they are beginning Krav Maga training immediately, refusing to allow any postponements.
Horrified, she drops her phone while arguing that intensive exercise would make her physically ill.
Seo Do-jum walks toward her, calling her clumsy as she struggles to recover her device.
Both reach for the phone simultaneously, their hands nearly brushing against the bedroom heartbed.
He intercepts the phone and notices the countdown, asking what she is waiting for next year.
Baek Yi-hae decides that being honest now is better than surprising him with the truth later. She informs him of her plan to move out the moment she becomes an adult.
She justifies her decision by explaining she needs to start preparing for her departure slowly.
Stunned by the revelation, Seo Dojam asks her to repeat her unexpected and shocking statement. He argues his father wouldn't pressure her to leave, but she insists on not overstaying. Offering a cheerful smile, she confirms her intention to leave exactly 1 year from now. Seo Dojam suddenly grips her shoulder firmly, his intense reaction catching her completely off guard. He leans in, questioning if she feels uncomfortable and why she planned this move alone. Baek Yi-hae tries to pull away, clarifying that she simply intends to leave when appropriate.
Seo Dojam looks down with a grim expression, refusing to believe anything she just said.
Trembling under his gaze, she asks why he's reacting so severely to her independence. He shouts that his whole family was terrified of losing her during her recent illness.
He demands honesty about any grievances with his family so he can try to fix them.
She tells him he sounds strange, but he stands his ground with a looming presence. He declares they will be engaged, triggering an urgent red system warning for a sudden effect.
He commands her to speak with him, his face inching dangerously close to her own. Baek Yi-hae blushes deeply, her mind racing as she realizes his proximity is far too close.
She desperately tells herself to remain calm and not let his intensity fluster her emotions. Turning her face away, she admits that his overwhelming and scary behavior makes her uncomfortable. She stares at him with a mix of defiance and anxiety while he processes her words.
Looking directly at him, she reiterates that his occasional frightening attitude is the real problem.
A system notification confirms that the young man's abnormal, aggressive state is finally beginning to subside.
Seo Dojam looks visibly shaken, his red-eyed gaze softening after hearing her honest, fearful assessment. He stands back, his face clouded with shadows as he questions the weight of her words.
He looks at her with an unreadable expression, finding her reaction both troubling and significant.
Baek Yi-hae remains seated on the bed, her face flushed with lingering embarrassment and distress.
She yells for him to stay away, her heart pounding as she tries to regain her composure. He pauses at the door, glancing back to ask if she is actually crying now. She heatedly denies crying like a child, inwardly worrying that she might have overreacted earlier. Seo Dojam looks away thoughtfully, resolving to firmly shut down the confusing situation between them. Baek Yi-hae jumps up, loudly arguing that everyone thinks about independence when reaching adulthood. She clarifies that her countdown was merely excitement for growing up, not a secret escape. Clenching her sweater, she tells him his sensitive reaction is causing her a lot of stress. Seo Dojam watches her silently, his features bathed in the warm light of the bedroom. He abruptly agrees, turning to leave the room while the tension begins to slowly dissipate. He admits his overreaction and dismisses his earlier talk of engagement as something entirely ridiculous. He commands her to get some rest as he prepares to exit the room immediately. Baek Yi-hae watches his retreating back, the weight of the confrontation still hanging in the air. She collapses on the bed in a daze, realizing her explanation caused a massive misunderstanding. Clutching her face, she despairs over her racing thoughts and his sudden, cold departure. Baek Yi-hae collapses on her bed, lamenting her current situation and desperate for a change. Sitting up, the blonde girl desperately asks the unseen player if they are still present. She laments not seeing him recently, wondering if she must handle the consequences alone.
An inner thought bubble expresses her fear of failing to set boundaries with Seo Dojam.
Recalling his past pain, Yi-hae resolves to succeed for his sake out of sheer gratitude. Seo Dojam sits alone in a dark room at night, lost in deep, silent contemplation. He recalls her fearful words, wondering if she was only pretending to be comfortable before. Remembering her smiles at dinner, he questions if she was merely maintaining a calculated distance. At his desk, Seo Do-yum struggles with his growing confusion regarding his feelings for Baek Yi-hae. He remembers a girl stating her preference for kind people over being restricted by family. A sticky note from Yi-hae on his workbook asks him to memorize just 1 page. Flashback to a comforting hand on his head as a woman encourages him to find love. Seo Do-gum resolves that he desires a relationship with Yi-hae that transcends their family ties.
Looking at their family portrait, the young man admits to himself that he is completely lost.
The new school semester begins with chaos as the students rush to avoid being late. Outside the mansion, Seo Yeol shouts for the driver to depart immediately for school. In the car, Yul excitedly tells his sister how girls were staring at him during orientation.
He boasts about his mainly high school looks, jokingly worrying that he might become too popular.
Baek Yi-hae laughs, inwardly relieved that her brother is so sociable compared to his older brother. Looking at Dojam, she notes that while handsome, his scary aura makes others avoid him. Yeol insists on his future popularity, while Yi-hae attributes his good looks to the family genes. Dojam sternly tells Yeol to stop messing around, making the younger boy complain about being infantilized. Yeol expresses his jealousy that Dojam and Yi-hae are sharing the same class once again.
Baek Yi-hae reacts with surprise, finding the coincidence of their shared classroom to be quite amazing.
Seo Dojam remains silent, his back turned to the others as he stares out the window. The school building stands under a clear sky as students arrive for the first day. In the hallway, girls whisper excitedly about an incredibly handsome boy they saw during orientation.
Girls swarm Seo Yol, asking for his name in class while discussing his limo arrival.
Watching from the stairs, Yihei confirms to herself that Yol has already become extremely popular.
Dojum tells Yihei to focus on studying, prompting her to retort that he needs it more.
The scene shifts to classroom 3-3 as the students begin to settle into their seats. Students whisper about Dojum's handsome but tired appearance as Yihei resolves to make a choice.
Baekihei takes a determined step forward, mentally preparing herself for the events ahead.
A system notification appears before her, announcing that the main story of the game has begun.
The teacher loudly greets the class, calling them brats and telling them to sit down.
Students groan about their history teacher as Yihei and Dojum take their seats side by side.
Yihei writes in her notebook, planning to facilitate the first appearance and meeting of Ye Unsol.
She notes the necessity of getting rid of Dojum's intense, fixated gaze to proceed with her plan.
She tells Dojum to guard his chastity for his fated love, earning a skeptical reaction.
Dojum leans in close, narrowing his eyes as he asks if she is seriously avoiding him.
He questions if their desk assignment makes her uncomfortable. She redirects his attention to the teacher.
The teacher demands focus for an important announcement, to which Yihei responds with visible nervousness.
The teacher announces a transfer student, making Yihei realize the long-awaited plot point is finally starting.
She tells Dojum to look carefully at the girl who is destined to be his. Dojum lazily puts his head down to sleep, leaving Yihei stunned by his total lack of interest. Frustrated, she tries to wake him up, insisting this moment is a highlight of the story. The classroom door opens as a pair of clean white shoes steps across the threshold.
A silver-haired girl with a friendly smile enters, introducing herself to the expectant classroom. Ye Eun-sol smiles brightly, her presence illuminating the room as she greets her new classmates.
Baekihei stares in frozen shock, her pen dropping as she witnesses the heroine's arrival.
Baekihei's pencil case hits the floor, spilling its colorful contents across the classroom tiles.
Curious students look on as a new presence enters the classroom, sparking immediate hushed whispers.
Stunned, Baekihei stares forward with wide eyes, her mind completely blank from the shock.
A pair of clean white slip-on shoes steps into view, marking the newcomer's formal entry.
A tall, handsome boy with silver hair introduces himself as Ye Eun-sol with a smile.
Ye Eun-sol offers a polite greeting to the class, surrounded by a charming, sparkly aura.
Panic-stricken, Yihei realizes the fated heroine is actually a boy, causing her massive internal distress.
The teacher instructs Eun-sol to sit behind Yihei next to a sleeping male student's desk. Eun-sol accepts the seat while Yihei reacts comically to the proximity of the heroine boy. As Eun-sol walks past, female students whisper about his strikingly handsome, idol-like appearance and charm.
He pauses behind Yihei's chair, noticing the pens and scissors scattered on the floor nearby.
Eun-sol kindly begins picking up her fallen items, his movements graceful and his smile ever-present.
He hands her the pencil case, expressing his excitement for being in the same class.
Yihei is completely flustered, her face heating up as she stammers through an incoherent response.
A moment of intense internal processing occurs as she tries to grasp her current ridiculous situation. Eun-sol cheerfully greets his new desk partner, Seo Dogum, who remains silent with his head down. Dojum glares with a dark intensity while Yihei realizes both male leads are now together. Eun-sol maintains his gentle expression, his handsome features further confusing Yihei's perception of the plot. She despairs, wondering if she must now facilitate a romance between these two handsome young men.
Clutching her head in agony, Yihei laments the total failure of her original game survival plan.
She observes Eun-sol's character archetype, questioning why the world is filled with such beautiful men.
Frantically writing in her notebook, she tries to determine the new direction of this changed story.
She mistakenly concludes that Dojum is open-minded and that her gangster male lead is gay.
Yihei spirals further into confusion, convinced that the entire game genre has shifted to something else.
Her imagination produces a flowery scene of the two boys together, making her question their positions.
She catches herself drooling over her wild delusions, suddenly wondering if her meddling is actually working.
A sharp mental command tells her to snap out of it and stop her inappropriate thoughts.
Yihei shakes her head vigorously to clear the fog, unaware that Dojum is watching her suspiciously.
Dojum stares at her with a look of utter confusion, wondering what is wrong with her.
Her notebook is filled with scribbled notes about Eun-sol's beauty, which Dojum notices with annoyance.
Dojum leans back silently, his sharp gaze fixed on Yihei as she remains lost in thought. He bluntly asks if she is interested in the new student, his eyes narrowing with jealousy. Eun-sol looks on with a calm, discerning gaze, seemingly enjoying the tension he has created. Days later, Yihei tries to stay positive, resolving to just hold on for one more year. Leaning against a bench, she feels dazed and defeated as her plans continue to crumble apart.
In a flashback to yesterday, Eun-sol finds Yihei in the hallway and calls out to her.
He admits he is lost and needs help finding the location of the school's counseling office.
He asks her to personally guide him there, placing a hand behind his head quite charmingly.
Dojum suddenly intervenes, his hand gripping Yihei's shoulder as a system warning of obsession appears.
He makes up a blatant lie about being lost and demands that she show him somewhere.
He offers a smug, mocking smile while thanking her for coming to the bathroom with him. Dojum drags her away by the arm while she screams in protest and Eun-sol watches silently.
Flashback to this morning's math class where the teacher emphasizes a formula for the upcoming exam. Eun-sol leans into Yihei's personal space, asking for the current page number in a soft voice.
Yihei is startled by the proximity as she begins to answer the silver-haired boy's simple question. Dojum aggressively leans over her to block Yunsol, prompting another warning about his increasing obsession level.
A nearby student trembles in fear, sensing an incredibly annoying and dark aura coming from Dojum.
Yihei pulls her sweater over her face, realizing Yunsol is intentionally and subtly provoking Dogum's temper.
At lunch, a tray is set down firmly as someone complains about being VP hurt.
Unsol towers over Yihei at the table, noting that they thought she had already left. In the crowded cafeteria, the silver-haired boy apologizes for his previous thoughtlessness, while the black-haired boy glares with a dark intensity.
The silver-haired boy leans in uncomfortably close to the blonde girl, causing her to freeze mid-bite with a flustered expression.
The blonde girl tells him to focus on his own food, privately noting that the silver-haired boy has become unusually clingy.
Angrily slamming his hand down, the black-haired boy complains that the meal tastes like garbage while exuding a menacing aura.
The black-haired boy firmly demands that the blonde girl stand up immediately, his hand resting near her tray.
He abruptly seizes her tray and announces they are going to the school store, leaving the blonde girl confused.
As he drags her away, system notifications indicate his obsession levels are rising while she protests that her meal was unfinished.
The blonde girl watches the silver-haired boy from a distance, wondering why the two male leads aren't interacting with each other.
A mental plea appears, begging the main characters to stop focusing on her since she is merely a supporting character.
In a wild delusion, the blonde girl imagines the two handsome boys falling in love and screams for it to happen.
Later, the black-haired younger brother approaches the blonde girl and asks what is wrong as she clutches her head in agony.
She explains that life has been chaotic lately, prompting the younger brother to ask if his older brother found any friends. The younger brother worries about his brother's lack of social connections, while the blonde girl thinks about the brother's fated male lover. She laments that the black-haired boy's obsession levels are skyrocketing, making her plan to facilitate his original romance nearly impossible.
Internal narration confirms that the situation became far more serious once the fated heroine appeared at school as a boy.
The blonde girl wonders why the silver-haired boy continues to approach her while simultaneously trying to provoke the black-haired boy's temper.
She mumbles incoherently about genre changes and wasted resources, making the younger brother wonder if senior year is breaking her mind. In a state of total despair over the modified plot, the blonde girl terrifies her younger brother with her intense, frantic behavior.
Clutching a carton of strawberry milk, she resolves to take action and settle the situation as quickly as she can.
With a look of fierce determination, the blonde girl decides she absolutely must have a private conversation with the silver-haired boy.
A sign indicating the location of the school's male restroom is shown hanging on a plain white wall.
Standing at the sinks in a restroom, the blonde girl stares into the mirror and questions if the plot twist is a system error. She is startled by an arrival and tries to play it cool by greeting the newcomer as if they were a friend.
A girl with maroon hair and a pink jacket enters and asks if the blonde girl has a minute to talk. Facing her classmate, the blonde girl stammers through a greeting while trying to figure out the reason for this unexpected encounter.
She recognizes the newcomer as Jang Sol-gi, a supporting antagonist who is currently busy fixing her hair with a small comb.
Silgi asks directly if the blonde girl is actually dating him, which leaves her completely confused about who she is referring to.
Accusing her of playing dumb, Selgi clarifies that she is talking about the blonde girl's relationship with the black-haired boy.
Selgi claims that the rumors about their relationship are everywhere and that their close bond has become incredibly obvious to everyone.
While a classmate whispers about being jealous of the black-haired boy's looks, the blonde girl insists that everything is just a rumor.
Seulgi lists their constant hand-holding, eating together, and commuting together as undeniable proof that they are much more than just friends.
The blonde girl stands completely frozen and wide-eyed, unable to think of a single comeback to the overwhelming evidence against her.
Selgi mocks the idea of them being an official couple, while the blonde girl despairs over the sudden trials affecting her love life.
She nervously laughs off the accusation, explaining that they only stick together because their families are close and they can't date.
When Silgi asks if they are engaged, the blonde girl frantically claims they are just childhood friends who consider each other family. She insists they are like real siblings, with her as the older sister, even if the black-haired boy is more mature than her.
Selgi finds the sibling excuse to be hilariously transparent, while the blonde girl performs a dramatic gagging gesture in the background.
To prove her point, the blonde girl loudly claims the idea of dating him makes her want to puke, mentally apologizing to him.
As the blonde girl continues her exaggerated vomiting act, Solki and her friend decide they have seen enough and choose to leave.
After they depart, she reflects on how the world has become filled with weird events ever since the fated heroine arrived as a boy.
Walking down the hallway, Silky's friend asks if the puke act was believable, but Silky remains suspicious of the blonde girl's every move.
Silky mentions that the blonde girl was also seen flirting with the new transfer student, adding to her list of suspicious behaviors.
Hidden around a corner, the silver-haired boy listens to the girl's gossip about him and the blonde girl with a knowing smirk.
Inside a quiet classroom, a student rests their head on the desk while others are busy with their own studies and conversations.
The blonde girl walks into the room and is greeted by the silver-haired boy, who claims he has been waiting for her arrival. He flirts by telling her that her name is pretty, prompting her to internally scream for him to stop his constant advances.
The silver-haired boy asks her to go to the staff room with him because the homeroom teacher requested his presence for something.
A sign for the staff room is shown as an explanation follows about the need for new textbooks due to a change in schools. The teacher tells them to carry the heavy textbooks together, making the blonde girl feel like she has been recruited as a pack mule. The teacher mentions that the black-haired boy significantly improved his history quiz score, asking the blonde girl if she was the tutor responsible. The teacher praises Yihei's tutoring, noting that midterms should be fine since Dojum is studying.
Yihei reflects on her efforts to make Dojum more human through her constant academic guidance.
She believes the silver-haired boy should be the one teaching him, as per the original plot. Carrying a heavy stack of books, the blonde girl asks the silver-haired boy why he is staring.
The silver-haired boy offers a gentle smile and simply explains that she looks quite cute.
Surprised, Yihei awkwardly returns the compliment, internally suspecting that he is definitely hitting on her.
The silver-haired boy cockily asks if she will fall for him now, which deeply annoys her.
She notes that his new male role has made him arrogant and decides he is unattractive.
Smirking at her reaction, the silver-haired boy asks what is with the intense look she is giving.
He questions if she dislikes him doing things that are outside of his usual school role. The blonde girl looks back at him with a startled and slightly confused expression on her face. An advertisement page provides details on how to commission various manhwa and novel series online.
A promotional banner features a girl holding a pumpkin while encouraging readers to support the team.
Yihai wonders what the boy meant by his words, while his eyes suggest a hidden depth.
A system warning indicates Dojum is frustrated and watching them, prompting a shocked reaction from Yihei.
Dojum suddenly appears and calls her name, making her jump as she asks when he arrived.
He demands to take the book she is carrying, though she insists it is not necessary. The black-haired boy reaches out and firmly takes the heavy stock of books from the other boy.
Dojum tells the silver-haired boy to carry his own things instead of burdening the blonde girl. The silver-haired boy clarifies that the teacher assigned the task and he did not force her.
Dojum stares him down, bluntly asking if he is capable of carrying his own belongings alone.
Yihei is thrilled by the intervention, silently cheering on the black-haired boy for his direct approach.
The black-haired boy's sharp profile is shown as he remains focused on the tense interaction.
He asks the silver-haired boy if he enjoys using people while patting Yihei on the head.
Looking at them, the silver-haired boy observes that they seem much closer than he originally thought.
Yihei wonders about the meaning behind his comment and the strange expression he is now making.
As the silver-haired boy leaves, Dojum notes how annoying it is that he understands their relationship.
A system quest to reveal her identity appears, leaving Yihei questioning the sudden and difficult task.
The notification warns of a bullying episode on failure, or a redefined relationship if she succeeds. Recalling her encounter with the side villain, she realizes the previous interaction was a terrible bad omen.
The silver-haired boy walks away with the book, stating he is leaving if they want help.
Determined to avoid a bad ending, Yihei runs after him to clear the identity reveal quest.
Closing her eyes, she tells herself to think carefully about the secret identity of the girl.
The girl stops her classmate in the hallway by grabbing his arm with a sudden movement.
She points a finger and loudly calls him a hermaphrodite, demanding that he stop right there. She claims his true nature is exposed as a being where both male and female are one. Surrounded by a bizarre aura, she dramatically concludes that he is actually a white worm beastman.
The silver-haired boy is stunned, asking if she thinks now is a good time for jokes.
She insists her deduction is serious, noting that some worms are white, just like his hair color. Clutching her head, she shouts that his facial features are perfect for a female lead character. She believes her logic is sound, while the black-haired boy watches her outburst with sheer surprise.
She screams her final deduction about his identity as the boys stand there in total silence.
A close view shows the black-haired boy's mouth curling into a wide, amused, and mocking smirk.
He mocks the silver-haired boy for being a punk getting teased so relentlessly by a girl.
A notification shows Dojum's affinity rising because he is satisfied with how she messed with Yunsul.
Defeated, the silver-haired boy admits he knows he lacks masculinity and begs her to finally stop.
His expression darkens as he glares at her and tells her to just piss off already.
Standing outside at sunset, the blonde girl regrets overdoing her insults during their earlier confrontation.
Dojum asks how she thinks of such things, and she admits she panicked about the ending.
Dojum realizes she isn't interested in the boy, while she argues her claims were meant literally.
Dojum mocks her white worm beastman theory, while Ihei fumes over her failed attempt to explain things. Their shoes step in sync across the pavement during the golden hour of their walk home.
Dojum leans toward the girl, asking if she truly prefers faces like Yunsal's over his own.
She argues that recognizing beauty isn't a crime and tells him to just befriend the new boy. Dojum refuses, irritated by the idea that the silver-haired student is constantly flirting with her. She promises to uncover the truth, but Dojum demands she answer if he's actually her type.
Dojum stares at her intensely, his eyes sharp as he repeats his question about her personal preferences.
He asks if he should touch her hair like the other boy, causing her to blush and flinch. Turning away, he dismisses the topic and brings up her desire for independence from their families.
Frustrated, she shouts that he is already handsome, which leaves him stunned as his heart races.
He questions her judgment on his looks, while she calls him annoying for being so clueless.
A phone screen displays comments about Dojum's overwhelming handsomeness and his status as a romance icon.
She yells that if he isn't handsome, nobody is, especially since he called Yoonsol pretty. A close view captures Lee groaning in utter frustration at his stubbornness and lack of self-awareness.
She accidentally blurts out that she likes him to prove she isn't interested in the other boy.
Dojum is left speechless, his face flushing slightly as he absorbs her sudden, loud confession.
Aihei gasps in horror, frantically clarifying that she only meant she likes his physical face.
She realizes she walked right into a trap and tells him to stop his petty rivalry.
Dojum remains frozen in silence, his name spinning through his mind as he processes her words.
System windows declare that his affinity is skyrocketing because he is completely confused by her.
He stares down at the pavement as the status windows go berserk with constant affinity increases.
Without warning, Dojum reaches out and catches her arm with a firm and sudden grip.
He pulls her close, demanding she repeat a harsh insult toward the silver-haired transfer student.
Since she likes him more, he tells her to look at him and say the words. Dojum's intense gaze burns as he repeats the insult, his jealousy driving his demand for loyalty.
Aihei looks at him with disbelief, asking if he is seriously going to act this childish.
He accuses her of playing games while she points out his current behavior is even worse.
Dojum lets out a small sound, his fierce expression softening into one of realization and regret.
He releases her arm and apologizes, remembering that she dislikes being handled so roughly. She confirms her dislike, but admits he didn't ignore her earlier compliment about his looks.
Dojum looks at her and asks if she has any idea how weird she really is.
He wonders if she is genuinely perceptive, totally clueless, or just trying to annoy him.
Blushing, he looks away and wonders if her words were empty or if they meant everything.
A hazy memory shows a younger Dojum hugging her, asking if she truly hates his family.
He wonders who the girl he's been seeing really is if she claims to hate him.
She reflects on his tendency to tease her as if he can see right through her.
He laments that she constantly pushes him away only to say things she doesn't mean.
He decides that the openings she gives him are the only way to see her true self.
Aihei blushes deeply as she softly calls out his name, her expression filled with hidden emotion.
From a high angle, Dojum claims he sees her clearly now amidst the floating system windows. He suddenly brushes past her without another word, leaving her startled and standing alone.
Confused, she asks where he is going since he is heading into a dark side alley.
He looks back over his shoulder, calling her an idiot and explaining it's a shortcut home.
Dojum continues walking into the shadows of the alley, telling her to follow along behind him.
Aihei watches him walk away, her face burning with embarrassment as she remains frozen in place. She looks down at the ground and quietly apologizes, feeling bad for her earlier harsh words.
A recruitment banner for translators and editors features a stunning red-haired girl in elegant black attire.
The scene transitions to a grand traditional mansion illuminated by the soft colors of the sunset.
A spread of various Korean side dishes and main courses is prepared on the dining table.
During dinner, a man asks about school life while Dojum eats and Aihei reassures him.
Yul mentions that the blonde girl is currently the main topic on several gossip blogs.
He explains rumors of a love triangle involving his brother and the transfer student, Yoonsol.
The blonde girl screams in shock while the black-haired boy watches her during dinner. The man warns her about strange men, though she thinks he should include his son. When asked if it is a bad rumor, Yul dismisses it as typical school gossip. A close view shows the black-haired boy focused on the concept of social hierarchy.
Dojum stares at her, thinking that her simple explanation is not nearly enough. Yahe tells the man that she already made her position very clear to her classmates. She gives a thumbs up while claiming she and Dojum are practically like real siblings. Dojum looks down while she claims their relationship is purely familial and obvious to everyone. He slams his hand on the table when she insists they are just brother and sister. A close view shows the blonde girl looking incredibly startled and confused by his sudden reaction. Standing up, the black-haired boy firmly states that he has never considered her his sister. Yihei is left speechless as her logic is challenged by his blunt and serious declaration. She asks what he wants her to say or how else she should have responded.
A sharp gaze from the black-haired boy reflects his growing frustration with the current situation.
She explains she only wanted to stop dating rumors, leaving the boy and man completely speechless.
Blushing deeply, she apologizes for her outburst and announces that she is heading out.
Yul asks if she is angry, but the man tells him to let her be. Walking away, she wonders about Dojum's mood swings and his dislike of being called family.
She fumes over Dojum's behavior while heading toward her room to escape the tense atmosphere.
Georgium stands alone in the room, seemingly lost in thought after the heated exchange.
In his study, the man asks his son why he hurt Yihei with such words.
He reminds Dojum that she risked her life to save Yul during a past accident.
The man confesses he assumed Dojum already viewed the blonde girl as his true family.
A close view captures the man asking if he has completely misunderstood his son's intentions.
He offers to suggest a betrothal to Yel instead if Dogyeom resents the idea. Dojum objects immediately, arguing that Yul is far too young for such a serious arrangement.
Sighing, he clarifies that he does not dislike her and will speak with her personally. The man informs him that she is currently not in her room at the moment.
He explains that Yul and Yihei are busy doing something together elsewhere in the house.
Under the full moon, Yihai knocks on a door and identifies herself to the younger boy.
Yul admits he was worried she wouldn't come after the intense drama during their dinner.
He reveals an elaborate gaming setup with snacks ready for them to play a horror game.
Determined to vent her frustration through gaming, she prepares to play while Yul watches happily.
A close view shows the blonde girl's hands firmly gripping the video game controller.
The two sit on the floor, ready to begin their gaming session in the dark.
They notice the creepy atmosphere and scary music as Yul asks if she's truly ready.
Grinning, she tells him to bring it on and asks if he is the nervous one.
She teases him for being a kid while he vows to prove his gaming skills.
The game starts with a loud scream as they both dive into the frightening experience.
A system window notifies Yihei that Dojiem is currently lingering just outside of the door.
She wonders if he considers his own brother a strange man as he sighs outside.
Dojum places his hand on the door handle, hesitating to enter the room.
A notification sound chimes as Dojum continues to stand in front of the closed door.
She tries to ignore the system alerts while Yell warns that something is about to attack.
A terrifying figure appears on the screen, causing a loud scream of pure horror.
Yul clings to Yihei in fear while she urges him to grab a nearby item.
He panics about the darkness in the game, unable to see anything on the screen.
In the game, Yihei tells him to use the flashlight found within his inventory.
Inside, the boy screams for help while the blonde girl focuses on looting a key.
The black-haired boy listens outside as the girl teases the younger boy about his bravery.
Leaning against the door, the boy hears his brother ask to stay close to the girl.
The older brother stands in the hallway, his heart racing as he listens to their conversation.
His expression darkens as the girl complains about the younger boy being too heavy to move.
A visual metaphor of a frayed rope finally snapping signifies his patience reaching its absolute limit. The older brother slams the door open, appearing as a terrifying silhouette with glowing red eyes.
Startled by the sudden intrusion, the girl and the younger boy look up in complete shock.
Standing in the doorway, the older brother watches as the boy claims that nothing actually happened.
He enters the room silently, radiating an intense and threatening aura that fills the entire space.
The older brother grabs the younger boy and pulls him away from the startled blonde girl.
He scolds his younger brother for being too close and tells him to restrain his behavior.
The younger boy makes excuses about the game while the older brother criticizes his poor handling. A system of snacks and a controller sit idle as the younger boy laments quitting.
Taking the controller, the older brother warns him to stop using games as excuses to cling.
The horror game screen displays a terrifying woman, signaling a sudden and frightening jumpscare event.
The younger boy shouts a warning as the older brother accidentally triggers a frightening game sequence.
A foot slips on the floor as someone loses their balance during the sudden chaotic moment.
The older brother falls flat on his back while the other two stare in utter disbelief.
With the lights on, the boy and girl look down at the older brother in surprise.
The blonde girl asks if he is hurt while he covers his face in total embarrassment. Blushing deeply, the older brother hides his face and tells them both to just forget it.
He tells the girl to go ahead and claims he can get up by himself now.
The blonde girl struggles to hide her amusement at the older brother's very uncool gaming accident.
She laughs and points at him, finding their similar reactions to be just like real brothers. Calling them both total cowards, the girl teases them while the younger boy defends his bravery.
The blonde girl continues to laugh brightly, finding the entire situation and their reactions genuinely hilarious.
The older brother watches her, his earlier anger completely replaced by a moment of quiet observation. He blushes while looking at her, clearly affected by her laughter and her cheerful presence nearby.
Looking at his hand, he thinks about how incredibly embarrassing his recent behavior has been today.
The girl and the older brother sit together in a peaceful moment following the loud drama.
The younger boy reappears at the door, asking if he can sleep there because of here.
The older brother shuts the door on him while the girl offers a soft, final goodnight.
Standing by the door, the older brother hears her compare the younger boy's behavior to his.
Outside the room, the younger boy fumes about the wasted effort he spent creating this opportunity.
He blushes while thinking that there is still no guarantee she will end up with Dodiam.
The girl announces she is heading to bed and suggests that the older brother does too.
Reaching out quickly, the older brother catches her hand to stop her from leaving the room. She pauses and turns back, wondering if he has something specific on his mind to share.
Looking down with a serious expression, the older brother asks her if she is still angry. The blonde girl looks back at him with a confused and surprised expression on her face. Realizing he means the dinner argument, she laughs and says she already forgot all about it.
The older brother apologizes, explaining that his earlier harsh words were not intended to hurt her.
He looks away while continuing his quiet and sincere apology for his behavior during their dinner. He explains he sees them as a different family and was simply caught off guard earlier.
The girl tells him to stop explaining while wondering why he is suddenly acting so timid. He asks for help with his studies, but she offers to look at the work immediately.
He refuses, claiming that taking her to his room now would be another obvious cheap trick. The blonde girl insists it is not a big deal and claims she has no motive.
The black-haired boy leans close and states he has motives and wants a proper date.
A system window notes the black-haired boy's jealousy while the blonde girl reacts with shock.
The blonde girl questions his meaning while appearing confused by his sudden and intense focus.
Blushing, the blonde girl insists that studying is a routine and does not count as dating.
He questions the late hour, but she remains firm in her decision to check his work.
The black-haired boy asks if a date is repulsive while she demands he stop overanalyzing.
She explains that they spend plenty of time together naturally without needing to set formal dates.
The blonde girl tells him to hurry up before she changes her mind about assisting him.
A small smile appears on the black-haired boy's face as he watches the blonde girl walk.
In the study, she points out a specific problem she has already explained to him multiple times.
Sitting together, she asks if he has been neglecting his general studies for other subjects lately. She provides him with a new notebook to track his errors and improve his math score. The blonde girl explains the procedure for using the notebook to prepare effectively for upcoming finals. She writes a sample equation stating that identifying the cause of failure is what truly matters.
The black-haired boy watches her, thinking her bubbly handwriting matches her cheerful and lively personality.
She continues to solve a problem for him, instructing him to review her logic carefully later. He thinks about Baek Hye, noting that she possesses the most expressive face he has ever seen.
His expression darkens while wondering why she is so comfortable and relaxed around his younger brother. Handing over the notebook, she encourages him to use it to easily pass his next exam.
In a flashback, he kneels by her hospital bed and asks her to rely on him.
Back in the present, she asks if he is actually listening to her explanation about studying.
He confirms he is listening, though she teases him about whether his ears are actually working. Turning around, she demands to know exactly what he is looking at since he is distracted.
She sets the pen down and tells him to solve the next academic problem by himself. Turning away, the blonde girl tells him to stop spacing out while she uses her phone.
The black-haired boy sits silently, reflecting on her earlier words regarding finding the correct answers. Looking at the notebook, he thinks the only right answer he wants to find is her heart.
He thinks about how lovely she is, finding himself unable to stop staring despite his growing frustration. A thought bubble reveals that he is struggling to process these strange and completely new emotions.
The black-haired boy continues focusing on his work while the girl plays a game nearby.
The girl looks at her phone in disappointment as her game comes to an abrupt end.
She panics over her loss while several system notifications suddenly begin to appear around her.
Multiple pink windows inform her that Dojam is thinking of her and finding her actions lovely.
Alone in her room, the girl fumes over Dojam's weird behavior while lying on her bed. She begs the system to stop spamming Windows about his thoughts while she hides her face.
Rolling onto her back, she complains about losing her mind over the current confusing situation.
Sighing, she wonders if she can keep avoiding him if he truly harbors such deep feelings. A digital glitch effect appears as she asks the player what she is supposed to do.
A pink-haired figure appears on a screen stating that the final decision rests solely with her.
Startled, the girl screams while the figure tells her to calm down and stop acting afraid.
She yells at the screen about a main quest involving exposing another character's secret identity. The girl questions if the system is glitching regarding a character who is currently a man.
The pink-haired figure confirms that Yi In-sol was indeed the heroine of the original story.
She notes Yoon-sol's current status, but the figure claims no more information is available right now.
The figure explains they only appeared because the girl seemed more rattled by another personal issue.
She reacts with shock as the figure mentions her realization of Dojam's obvious affection for her.
The pink-haired figure asks her if she truly believes she can achieve a happy ending here.
Shaking with anger, she asks why she wouldn't be able to reach a successful conclusion.
She rants at the figure, desperately hoping for an unlikely outcome regarding Dojam's romantic interest.
The girl buries her head in the bed and tells the system figure to go away.
Baek Hye is observed on a screen, noted for being messy but a worthwhile gamble.
Her long hair flows elegantly behind her as she moves through a stylized digital space. Back in her room, the girl collapses onto her bed while lost in Titgop. She lies there blushing intensely, clearly flustered by the overwhelming emotions of her recent interactions.
A glowing message suggests that she might find a way within her own chosen path.
The scene shifts to the black-haired boy sitting alone at his desk in the dark.
Seo Dojam focuses intently on his schoolwork, determined to improve following her helpful study advice.
He stares at the page, reflecting on her promise that he would eventually find the answer.
The next morning at school, students wonder where the older brother went so early.
So-yeol admits he has no information while walking through the gates with the pro.
The blonde girl wonders what could be so urgent that Dojam would leave without notice.
She worries he is avoiding her, while the younger brother watches her with a meaningful look.
Looking ahead with a serious expression, the black-haired boy's mind is clearly occupied by distant thoughts.
He suddenly calls out to her, prompting her to look up in surprise at his address.
The boy begins to mention a certain someone's future partner while leaning toward the bro.
He leans in closer and speaks of the person who will eventually get engaged to her.
He offers a knowing smirk while standing very close, heightening the tension between them both.
The blonde girl stares back in stunned silence, her face heating up from his sudden proximity. She remains frozen and flustered, unable to process the weight of his teasing but loaded words. Internally, she questions what he is trying to say while appearing completely overwhelmed by the situation. She imagines a romantic proposal from him and frantically tells herself to stop these wild delusions.
Turning away, he rubs his neck and claims he didn't mean it in any weird way.
Observing his red ears, she nervously agrees that she isn't thinking anything weird about it either. He suddenly shouts at her to be more aware, accusing her of wanting a dramatic role. Aihei sighs and tells Yol she is already exhausted from dealing with his intense older brother. He leans in again, asking if she would feel differently if his reason actually was romantic.
She playfully kicks her foot out, urging him to go inside before they are both late. A thought bubble notes that being firm might prevent word from reaching the older brother. Walking away, she thinks about Dojum's strict nature and hopes Yeol has different tastes.
Yeol looks disappointed as he watches her go, his expression shifting to a more somber mood.
Someone approaches the younger brother and asks him about the blonde girl's current status.
The younger brother turns in shock as he hears his older sibling calling out to him.
Students gather in the classroom, buzzing with excitement and curiosity about the latest campus gossip.
Sitting at her desk, the blonde girl wonders why Dojum hasn't arrived before the bell.
She looks at the empty seat next to her, puzzled by the morning's mysterious school meeting.
Ye Yun-sol approaches her desk and asks why she isn't spending time with Dojum today. She brushes it off, wondering why he's so curious and if he's forgotten his previous embarrassment.
Eun-sol notes that everyone knows the two of them are always together at school, regardless.
The blonde girl flinches, clearly bothered by the silver-haired boy's direct and probing line of questioning. She internally scoffs at his narcissism while remembering the system's reveal about his original protagonist status.
The girl stares intensely at the silver-haired boy while his profile is shown in the foreground.
Eun-sol asks why she is staring while she suspects he is trying to test the rumors.
He leans closer to her, suggesting she doesn't have to act a certain way with him.
Leaning in, she whispers that she will support him if he is interested in her brother.
The silver-haired boy reacts with absolute shock and horror at her completely misunderstood romantic suggestion.
He lunges forward and covers her mouth, frantically trying to stop her from saying more. He clarifies his actual interest is in her, while she finds the entire situation incredibly troublesome. A cold voice suddenly commands the silver-haired boy to take his eyes off the blonde girl. Both students look up in shock as the older brother looms over them with a dark expression.
Dojum steps forward, stating that she already has enough trouble dealing with his own constant attention.
A hand reaches out and firmly grips the shoulder of the blonde girl. So Dogyam warns Baeki-hye she is too close to Yun-sol, leaving her utterly shocked. Students gossip about Dojum's handsome new appearance while system windows note his growing pure-heartedness.
Dojan walks past Ihai, who internally scoffs at him trying to succeed using only his face.
Ihai panics as she realizes Dojum's new, non-gangster look is exactly her preferred romantic type.
Dojum explains he visited his father's personal salon early because other shops were currently closed.
Ihai asks if he is auditioning for something, but he says he's just walking her home.
Ihai is flustered. He did his hair and makeup for school, but he cites yesterday's reflection.
Dojum leans in close to Ihai, whispering that he was specifically thinking about the error notebook. Ihai fumes, realizing the brat is focusing on her instead of actually studying for his exams. Dojum offers a charming smirk and asks how she likes him acting according to her tastes. The teacher slams his stick against the door, demanding quiet as he prepares to take attendance.
Ye Eun-sol watches the classroom commotion, wondering if a celebrity has recently transferred into the school.
Yun-sol offers a dark, knowing smirk while thinking that everything is currently proceeding according to plan.
Students whisper that Dojum truly looks like an idol and should have changed his style sooner.
Ihai ties her hair while students laugh about Dojum's previously intense and scary dark circles.
Ihai reflects on the trope where a male lead changes his style for the female lead.
Staring into a mirror, Ihai realizes with a blush that this event happened because of her. Jang Sol-gi confronts Ihai, accusing her of pretending to be indifferent while remodeling Dojum into her type.
Sol-gi laughs mockingly, asking Ihai to share tips for managing both Dogyam and the silver-haired boy.
Ihai tells Sol-gi her wording is nauseating, while Sol-gi finds Ihai's act to be incredibly annoying.
Ihai stares Sol-gi down, demanding to know if her goal is to ruin her school image.
Ihai accuses Sol-gi of being the one who spread the rumor of a local love triangle.
Sol-gi defiantly admits to spreading the rumor, while Ihai notes her rival is quite thick-skinned.
Ihai realizes Sol-gi was the unnamed culprit behind Eun-sol's bullying incident in the original game. Clenching her fist, Ihai decides to overpower her high school opponent with sheer momentum and confidence.
Ihai warns Sol-gi to stop her bullying behavior while students whisper about the girls fighting.
Sol-gi grins mockingly while Ihai asks if she understands that her behavior is completely childish. Sol-gi yells at Ihai to stay away from Dojum if she is really so confident.
Yun-sol enters the classroom, noting that the noise from their argument is audible in the hallway.
Eun-sol reminds the class to go to the gym to avoid making everyone run laps.
Students gasp and realize he is right, frantically preparing to leave for their PE class.
Students thank Yun-sol for the warning while noting the terrifying atmosphere between Ihai and Sol-gi.
Sol-gi laughs as she walks away from the desk, repeating that Ihai is simply so annoying. Ihai stands alone, internally grumbling that she finds the red-haired girl to be just as annoying.
Yun-sol and Sol-gi pass each other in the classroom with cold, unreadable expressions.
Eun-sol watches Sol-gi leave, thinking that the red-haired girl is definitely something else as well.
Yun-sol tells Ihai he intervened so they would only have a moderate argument with the girl. Ihai looks puzzled and asks why Yun-sol is alone instead of being on duty with Dogon.
Eun-sol explains Dojum didn't want to hang out and sent him away, so he joined Ihai.
Ihai asks him to finish explaining his morning comment regarding his interest in her. Eun-sol winks playfully at her and asks if she is already jumping to a romantic conclusion. Ihai tells him not to joke, while Eun-sol assures her she doesn't need to worry. Walking away, Yoon-sol claims the timing is wrong for them to talk any further right now.
Ah-hae stares after him, finding the silver-haired boy's behavior and words to be extremely suspicious.
The door to the sports equipment room opens with a heavy, metallic creaking sound. Dojim moves a ball cart, thinking being on duty involves much more work than he anticipated. He looks over his shoulder, reminding himself that he needs to lock up the room.
Dojim imagines the PE teacher yelling at him to do push-ups if he fails to lock.
Dojim looks frustrated as he realizes he completely forgot to go and get the key.
Dojim wonders why the sports equipment room door is already open when he arrived first.
He realizes he actually forgot the keys, which makes the situation even more confusing. Looking at the open door, he confirms he definitely does not have the keys.
A thought bubble notes that he arrived at the room before his silver-haired classmate.
He finds it suspicious that the room is unlocked despite having no explanation for how.
The scene shifts to the school building under a clear blue sky and fluffy clouds. In the gym, students gossip about Dojim potentially getting hit in the face during class.
Ah-hae gets annoyed hearing Seulgi express interest in Dojim's new handsome look during their stretches.
Ji-hye realizes her internal possessive reaction made her sound like a protective mother-in-law.
The teacher announces a special partner dodgeball game with boy-girl pairs to help students bond.
Ah-hae is exasperated by the teacher's enthusiasm for a game she finds unnecessary for seniors. Dojim approaches Ihai to pair up, while other students notice the tension between them.
Students whisper about the pair's relationship status, leaving Ihai feeling completely overwhelmed by the attention.
Yoon-sol wants to avoid red-haired Seulgi's provocations, but is suddenly interrupted by his name being called.
Ah-hae asks the silver-haired boy to be her partner instead, visibly irritating a nearby Dojim.
Dojim confronts her about the choice while a system window notes his extreme discomfort with the situation. Dojim's expression turns menacing as he repeats her reason for wanting a refreshing change in partners. He sarcastically offers to shave his head for a makeover while Ah-hae tries to calm him down.
Yoon-sol tries to opt out, but Dojim calls him out for changing his previous stance.
Ah-hae scolds the silver-haired boy, claiming his interest won't just vanish and demanding consideration. Ah-hae decisively commands Dojim to pair with Seulgi instead, shocking the red-haired girl into silence.
Pushing the flustered Seulgi toward a grumpy Dojim, Ihai tells them both not to be shy. Students cheer for the new pairing while Seulgi blushes and Dojim remains cold and silent.
Ah-hae pushes Yoon-sol toward the court, hoping her plan will resolve Seulgi's grudge and end rumors.
Seulgi takes the lead into the game as Dojim sighs, clearly displeased with Ihai's sudden distancing. Dojim rubs his neck, grumbling that he thought changing his style would make her fall for him. He hides his face in frustration, mentally adding this misunderstanding to his growing record of failures.
Eun-so looks forward to the game while Ihai worries she made things worse by provoking Dojim.
Ah-hae is taken aback when her silver-haired partner expresses relief that she is good at sports.
Eun-so leans on her, playfully claiming he expects her to act as his shield during the game.
He claims to have no talent for sports, leading Ihai to question his honesty given his stature. The teacher signals for everyone to split into two teams now that all partners are paired up. Both pairs prepare for the match, with Seulgi clinging to Dojim while Ah-hae remains focused. The dodgeball game officially begins as the ball is launched across the gymnasium floor. Dojim dodges a throw with athletic precision while Seulgi screams and hides behind his back.
Ah-hae observes them with a somber thought about her role, while Yoon-sol finds her perspective brutal.
Seeing the other pair together makes Ihai increasingly annoyed as a ball flies toward her team. Ah-hae catches the high-speed dodgeball with one hand, displaying impressive reflexes and hidden physical skill. Yoon-sol is impressed by her catch, while Dojim suspects her secret combat training is finally showing. Eun-sol passes the ball back to Ihai, who decides to target her rival with a powerful throw.
Ah-hae hurls the ball with intense momentum, forcing Dojim to intercept it to protect a cowering Seulgi.
Seulgi is touched by the protection, but Dojim's intense gaze remains locked solely on a defiant Ah-hae. Eun-sol tells Ihai to relax her face, questioning why she looks so angry after making the pairs.
Ah-hae wonders what she looks like, and the silver-haired boy compares her to a betrayed wife.
Flustered, Ah-hae accuses him of being inconsistent by pushing her toward Dojim after his previous interference.
Yoon-sol tells her she is dense and asks why she is distancing herself and ruining the plan.
He explains his goal to avoid rumors, while Ah-hae dares him to just confess his true feelings. Yoon-sol jokes about his own intellectual sexiness and marrying himself, leaving Ah-hae completely and utterly confused. He mentions that getting close to her isn't entirely up to him, just as a ball approaches. Ah-hae tells him to duck and blocks the incoming dodgeball with her bare hands. Eun-sol warns Ah-hae that she is in big trouble as an angry Dojim prepares a throw.
Dojim glares while gripping the ball, and Yoon-sol playfully mocks his rival's growing husband-like rage.
Ah-hae demands Yoon-sol stop acting suspicious and asks him to meet her privately after school. Ah-hae declares she can't wait and demands to know about his relationship with Dojim immediately. Dojim focuses his concentration, timing his throw to miss Ihai and strike only his rival. Eun-sol asks if Ihai still believes he has some kind of romantic scheme involving Dojim. Yoon-sol tries to explain the misunderstanding just as Dojim launches a powerful dodgeball toward him. The high-speed ball strikes Yoon-sol squarely in the face, knocking him backward with intense force. Dojim stands in his follow-through while the other students watch the brutal impact in shock.
Dojum offers a satisfied smirk, claiming he successfully tagged his target during the dodgeball game.
A student screams out the silver-haired boy's name as he collapses onto the floor. Ai-hei rushes to Yoon-sol's side, frantically asking if he is okay as his nose bleeds. The PE teacher arrives, questioning the source of the sudden commotion during the partner match. Yoon-sol wipes blood from his face, looking up with a dazed yet oddly calm expression.
A student warns that such an aggressive playstyle could actually end up killing someone.
Yoon-sol accuses Dojum of intentional bullying, while the teacher asks if it was on purpose.
Dojum smirks while Ai-hei internally wishes he would have just admitted it was on purpose. The teacher instructs Lee to escort her partner Yoon-sol to the school nurse's office. Eun-sol insists he'll go alone, asking if Lee can take over his cleaning duty instead.
Eun-sol hands a key over, asking Dojum if he opened the storage room door earlier.
Wiping his nose, Yoon-sol cryptically mentions he opened the door for Dojum but forgot. Dojum looks confused as Yoon-sol bids him good luck and walks away from the gymnasium. Ai-hei apologizes to Dojum for Yoon-sol's behavior before heading off to help her partner.
Ai-hei scolds the boy's childishness while realizing she's about to be alone with Dojum again.
Doyum looms over a nervous Lee, noting this is another event where they are alone. Ai-hei internally groans, feeling as though she keeps returning to square one despite her efforts.
The scene focuses on Lee-hai's feet as she abruptly stops walking down the school hallway.
Yoon-sol smiles while walking past the nurse's office, carrying a set of jingling silver keys.
Dojum moves equipment in the storage room while Lee follows behind him, carrying a ball.
Ai-hei reflects on the earlier conversation with Yoon-sol and the sudden, violent dodgeball hit.
Ai-hei remembers Yoon-sol trying to explain the misunderstanding right before he was struck in the face.
Dojum asks if she's thinking about Yoon-sol, noting that she has been spacing out recently.
Ai-hei denies it, claiming she's just worried about the nosebleed, though Dojum isn't convinced.
Dojum admits he felt proud of the throw and intends to practice more martial arts. Ai-hei stares at him, completely at a loss for words after hearing his cold reasoning. Dojum continues to organize the sports equipment, his expression remaining neutral and focused on work. Ai-hei watches him silently, her mind racing as she tries to understand his intense behavior. Dojum explains he focused solely on hitting Yoon-sol to ensure Lee wouldn't get hurt. He adds that he doesn't expect her to understand his actions just because he said so.
Ai-hei asks if his hatred for Yoon-sol was really born from being conscious of her.
Dojum stands bathed in soft light, his handsome face looking unusually serious and quite determined.
Dojum claims she's drawn to nerdy types while Lee flusteredly insists Yoon-sol isn't her type.
Dojum leans in, intensely asking what he must do for her to be attracted to him.
Ai-hei's heart races as she worries about her plan to drift away for his sake.
Dojum clarifies that he isn't expecting a huge answer from her at this exact moment. He walks toward her, stating he won't push her into an engagement right now either.
Ai-hei blushes deeply as Dojum continues to approach her within the cramped storage room. Dojum turns his head away, muttering that his current approach just isn't working for him. Dojum asks for a second while Lee looks on with a startled and nervous expression. The dodgeball falls from Ai-hei's hands as the tension between the two reaches its peak.
Dojum leans toward a startled Lee, who questions him as a ball rolls across the floor.
Ai-hei resists his proximity and tells him they must stop whatever he is seemingly about to do.
Dojum focuses on Lee-hai's clothing while she stands flustered against the storage room door.
Dojum opens the door for air and dismisses her suspicious thoughts as being purely her own.
Ai-hei blushes while realizing her misunderstanding about his intentions, feeling foolish for her earlier reaction.
Dojum attempts to turn the handle only to hear an ominous rattling from the door. Dojum announces the door is locked from the outside, shocking Lee into a state of panic.
A loud shout rings out through the room to alert anyone outside of their confinement.
A fist pounds heavily against the metal door as they try to get someone's attention. Someone shouts from the interior of the storage shed, asking if there is anyone outside. Dojum tells Ai-hei to come closer as she worries about the door locking them in. Dojum suggests they attempt to force the door open, which leaves Lee looking extremely apprehensive.
Dojum slams his body against the metal door in a forceful attempt to break it open.
Ai-hei trembles as the room feels smaller, reflecting on the trauma of being trapped before.
The confined space makes it difficult for Lee to breathe as her panic starts to rise.
Ai-hei is startled by a sudden, loud clatter coming from the shadows of the storage room.
A box of shuttlecocks falls to the floor, scattering equipment across the dark concrete ground.
Dojum stops and turns when he hears a sudden, sharp scream echoing throughout the room.
Dojum rushes to Lee-hei's side and asks if she is all right after her panicked outcry.
Dojum asks if he scared her while Lee struggles to catch her breath during the episode.
DM questions her breathing, concerned that she is unable to inhale properly due to her panic. Ai-hei admits her struggle stems from a past trauma involving being stuck in cramped spaces.
Dojum is taken aback as he processes the revelation of her specific and painful trauma. A flashback shows a young boy lying in a hospital bed while suffering from a fever.
The young boy wakes up and wonders where he is, having forgotten the previous events.
Silhouetted men discuss helping their family and friends while the young boy listens from his bed. One man offers to pay for psychiatric treatment for the other's daughter following a traumatic event.
The young boy is told that he and Lee are in very similar, difficult situations. The young boy wonders about the identity of the girl named Lee mentioned by the adults.
In the present, Dojim looks at Lee with a serious expression as she struggles to breathe. Dojim tells Iha to match her breathing with his to help her calm her racing heart.
He guides her through a slow breathing exercise to help her recover from the panic attack. Lee focuses on his face as she follows his breathing rhythm, starting to feel much better. They sit on the floor together while Doyum asks if she has regained her steady breath.
Lee thanks him for his help before noticing a strange, pained expression on his face.
Dojim says he is glad she is okay, but Lee is struck by his suspicious appearance.
Lee realizes that Dojim is also struggling and tells him to stop acting so normal. Lee reaches out for Dojim, her hand touching his as she calls out his name.
Lee asks why he prioritized her safety and comfort over his own obvious and intense pain.
A close-up of Ihai's eyes shows her shock as she sees Dojim's true, vulnerable state.
Lie demands to know why he is acting fine when he is clearly suffering as well.
A silent question appears, wondering why Dojim is choosing to endure his pain in silence.
Lie suddenly pulls Dojim into a tight hug, catching him off guard with her forward action.
She explains that she wants to help him using the same method that helped her earlier. Lie embraces him tightly, hoping that their closeness will provide the comfort they both need.
The two remain sitting in a quiet embrace amidst the sports equipment in the storage room.
Lie notes the embarrassment of the situation but finds comfort in helping each other hold on.
Dojim reflects on the childhood memory he thought was lost until being trapped with Lie. Dojim wonders about their connection and asks why she is looking at him with such cuteness.
The pair sits together in the storage room, finding peace while breathing normally in the silence.
Dojim and Ihai sit side by side on the floor, sharing a quiet moment of mutual gratitude.
Resting in the storage room, Dojim looks at Lie and offers her his sincere thanks.
Lie is suddenly perplexed by the mention of a limit, her confusion visible in her expression.
A loud banging on the door accompanies a shout from the class representative looking for them. The class representative opens the door and asks if they are okay after they failed to appear.
Dojim and Ihai leave as the representative mentions the emergency key and questions the outside lock.
Lie looks worried while the class representative suggests that the storage room door lock might be broken.
The scene shifts as the sign for the school's nurse's office comes into clear view.
Yunsol sits quietly on a bed inside the nurse's office, bathed in the warm sunset light. Lie enters the room and calls out to Yunsol as he turns around to face her.
Lie returns Yunsol's bag, but he winces in pain as he takes it from her hand.
Closing the door behind her, Ihai insists that the two of them must have a private conversation. Unsol warns her that he's sending her back before Dojim loses control and goes berserk. Unsol reflects on the obsessive nature of the male lead from the story called Gangster Love. The scene transitions as the focus shifts away from the immediate confrontation toward the school's exterior.
The school day ends as the bell rings out across the campus during a vibrant sunset. Back in the classroom, Ihai and Dojim prepare to head home for the evening. Lie claims she has an errand for the teacher and tells Dojim to go home first. Lie grows nervous as Dojim stares at her, fearing he is becoming obsessive once again.
Dojim feels satisfied and tells Ihai to come home before it gets too dark outside.
Ihai is surprised by how easily Dojim backed off, comparing him to a well-trained animal. At this rate, he might start waiting by the door with a leash and a smile.
Sitting alone, Ihai contemplates her next move now that she has handled Dojim's behavior.
Ihai reaches for a bag under a desk as she prepares for her next task.
Holding Yunsol's bag, Ihai reflects on the storage room incident and the many questions she has.
Dojim walks through the school grounds alone, seemingly deep in thought about his current situation.
Dojim decides he needs to allow Ihai the freedom to do whatever makes her feel comfortable. Returning to the nurse's office, Ihai confronts Yunsol about how much he actually knows. Ihai demands that Yunsol stop testing her, prompting him to suggest they sit down and talk. Ihai questions why Yunsol went from acting interested to trying to pair her with Dojim.
Ihai accuses Yunsol of setting up a stage to influence her relationship with Dojim.
Unsol smirks and admits that he is actually quite skilled at setting up such elaborate stages.
Ihai presents a set of keys, asking if he was responsible for locking the storage room.
Unsol asks if they kissed in the storage room, which causes Ihai to shout in denial.
Ihai grabs Yunsol by the collar and aggressively demands to know his true identity. Ihai continues her interrogation, asking why Yunsol is going out of his way to provoke Dogyeon.
Yunsol winces as Ihai maintains her grip on his collar during her heated questioning. Unsol pins Ihai back and agrees that she is right to question his identity.
Unsol identifies himself as being a character from the story titled Gangster Love. Yunsol leans close to a blushing Ihai as the tension between the two characters escalates significantly.
Yunsol explains that he wants to reveal everything but is prevented by certain existing restrictions.
Ihai is baffled by the mention of restrictions, while Yunsol admits he cannot share his memories. Yunsol states that their mutual desire for a happy ending makes it difficult to cooperate fully.
Unsol notes that he has been working alone and that even the system has its limits.
Ihai is distraught because she hasn't received a quest completion notification despite learning his identity.
Yunsol wonders if Ihai needs to learn his full history before the next part unlocks.
Unsol asks Ihai why she chose to approach him of all the people available.
Ihai asks if he wants her and Dogyeom to be together, and he simply confirms it.
Yunsol looks down and admits he encouraged the pairing because Ihai seems suitable as a substitute.
Ihai is shocked by his cold words, and Yunsol tells her to forget his last comment. Yoonsol grabs his bag and expresses his desire to have no relationship or pairing with her. Unsol tells Lee that he has never once been jealous of her and Do-gyum. Yoonsol admits he was rooting for them and provoked Do-gyum's jealousy on purpose. Yoonsol tells Lee to follow her heart because the original story is just nagging. Yoonsol tells Lee to go home before it's too late as she questions him. Lee asks Yoonsol if he is really untroubled by Do-gyum becoming hostile toward him despite once loving him.
Lee reminds Yoonsol that he and Do-gyum once appeared to be truly in love.
Unsol exits the room, remarking that their love was enviably strong as he leaves.
Unsol walks outside, passing a parking sign as he navigates the school grounds alone.
Walking home during the sunset, Yoonsol appears solemn and deep in his own thoughts.
Back at home, a bag is thrown onto a counter with a heavy thud. Do-gyum prepares a drink while a narration mentions a modifier that once held him back.
Do-gyum drinks as the narration explains how the label of gangster cost him great loss.
A close-up shows Do-gyum's face as the text notes he repeated his tragic love story. A flashback reveals a younger Do-gyum standing over several men in a blood-splattered room.
Do-gyum looks distressed and calls out Yoonsol's name in the middle of the violent scene.
A girl sits on the floor of the room, calling out for Yoonsol in distress.
Do-gyum asks the girl if she is all right, looking injured and covered in blood himself. The girl cries, apologizing to Do-gyum for making him unhappy once again because of her. Do-gyum hugs the girl and tells her it is nonsense to blame herself for the situation. Do-gyum curses the fact that she has to suffer just for being involved with him. Yoonsol peeks into the room, witnessing the tragic interaction between Do-gyum and the girl. A caption explains that Do-gyum suffers from trauma and hyperventilation when trapped in small spaces. Yoonsol watches a version of Do-gyum bleeding on the floor, admitting he once loved him.
Through multiple playthroughs, Yoonsol has come to realize a deeper truth about their cycle.
Yoonsol reflects on finding different connections that might lead to a stronger, more lasting love. The narration notes that every ending is bad, with deaths resulting from them chasing each other.
Yoonsol thinks to himself that he wants to stop this foolish, repetitive cycle once and for all. A text bubble reveals Yoonsol is starting to hate Do-gyum for repeating this cycle of misery. Yoonsol wishes for the characters to find better connections and find happiness away from him.
Yoonsol wants to escape the playthrough cycle, deciding to let go because of his love. Returning to the present, Yoonsol leans against a wall, mentally conveying his remaining affection.
Unsol closes his eyes, processing the weight of his memories and his decision to step away.
Lee sits on her bed, realizing Yoonsol must have been in love with her past self.
Walking outside, Lee questions if she can truly follow her heart without causing more chaos. A close-up of Ihe's shoes shows her walking along the pavement as she ponders her future.
Ihe worries about the consequences of her choices while looking down in deep thought.
A memory of Do-gyum comforting her during her panic attack flashes in Ihe's mind.
Ihe looks up with a resolute expression, deciding she cannot continue like this anymore.
Ihe enters a grand building, determined to stop staying in the dark about her situation. A boy greets Ihe, but she walks past him as he asks why she is just arriving. The boy watches in confusion as Ihe heads up the stairs without acknowledging his greeting.
Ihe reaches for a door handle and opens it with a sharp clicking sound.
Entering her room, Ihe demands that the player come out and face her immediately. A holographic screen appears and the player tells Ihe to ask one thing at a time. The scene shifts as the narrative provides a brief moment of transition between events. Ihe drops her backpack on the floor as she prepares to confront the holographic system. Ihe asks the player what Yoonsol is, but is told it is her quest to find out.
Ihe insists Yoonsol is not a normal character since he is aware of the world's nature.
The hologram looks on as Ihe notes that Yoonsol seems to be in a similar situation.
Ihe demands information, but the player character dismisses her inquiry as being a shallow question.
The digital avatar watches the interface with an unreadable expression. A profile of Yoonsol appears on the system screen, marked as important information.
Surrounding herself with holographic windows, Ihe questions if Yoonsol remembers the bad endings or if he is a regressor from within this world.
Grabbing her hair in frustration, she wonders why he was reborn as a man and why he gave up on love despite his past. Ihe despairs, realizing this isn't the game she once knew, and her previous strategies are now completely useless to her. Looking away, the avatar wonders who Do-gyum is meant to have a happy ending with, noting the partner must be a protagonist.
Leaning into the screen, the avatar explains that Yoonsol was simply given a chance to reach a happy ending just like she was.
Ihe asks if this chance means a normal relationship with Do-gyum is actually possible for someone like her.
Ihe asks if he might escape with another girl, while the avatar questions if that information is even necessary for her.
The avatar tells Ihe she is a side character and a happy ending with Do-gyum is difficult, but Ihe says she already knows that.
The avatar notes Ihe is doing well with an unexpected play, revealing she has broken her predetermined limits.
Looking up in surprise, Ihe asks what the avatar is suddenly talking about regarding a limit. A system notification declares that the supporting character's limit has been unlocked, leaving Ihe staring in silent shock. A sudden realization strikes Ihe as she recalls the moment her limit was finally broken. The avatar finds the progress impressive but refuses to explain further, while Ihe demands one more answer before she leaves.
Watching the holographic profiles, Ihe asks why the main quest hasn't been cleared yet, even though she knows enough.
Pointing at Yoon-sol's window, she asks if he is also involved with a player since he mentioned having restrictions.
The avatar explains that Yoon-sol's situation is different as he must pay a specific price for his regression. Instead of a player, Yoon-sol is bound by the original story's influence, manifesting only as a standard mission window.
The system explains that his window is a constant warning that a bad ending is always possible.
Ahei rests her chin on her hand, deeply contemplating the risks of their situation.
Overwhelmed by the news, she trembles and concludes that both of them are already completely doomed.
Reminding her of the variables, the avatar disappears while telling Ihei to start playing the game much more proactively.
The avatar teases her for going quiet, but Ihei snaps back, claiming she is actually an honor student.
A brilliant flash of light signals the end of the digital communication. Collapsing onto her bed, Ihei lets out a tired sigh as she tells the system to go away.
She remembers Yoon-sol saying that their shared desire for a happy ending makes it hard for them to cooperate.
Looking out her window, Ihei decides she doesn't need a textbook strategy and must create another chance for herself.
The school building glows under the sunset as another day of classes comes to an end. Sitting in the car with Do-gyum and Yeol, Ihei remains silent as they both watch her.
Looking at her notes, she grows frustrated because she cannot see any opening to create another chance for success.
Ihei wonders how Yoon-sol can eat so calmly after throwing her into such confusion. She is annoyed that he remained super calm in class while she was left feeling unsettled by their encounter.
Yeol notes that the love triangle rumors have died down, which Ihei dismisses as people finally focusing on midterms.
Yeol teases that white-haired guys aren't her type, suggesting someone resembling Do-gyum like himself might be better, which shocks Do-gyum.
Do-gyum glares with a dark expression, asking Yeol if he is out of his mind, while Yeol defends his own popularity. Leaning in close, Do-gyum warns him not to cross the line, but Yeol questions how close they actually are.
Turning back to face them, Ihei tells Do-gyum that he has done enough with Yeol for now.
Do-gyum falls silent immediately, prompting Yeol to remark that he absolutely obeys whenever she says something to him.
Yeol wonders if there was more progress between them, noting they seemed cold recently and wondering when their feelings started.
Watching her, Yeol thinks to himself that he hasn't even shown off his charm yet and can't let things end. Yeol excitedly holds up his phone and suggests that they should all go to the beach for summer vacation.
During a family meeting, Do-gyum dismisses the plan, but Ihei is excited to plan ahead for their group trip.
Yeol imagines them in matching swimsuits, resolving to finally make it clear to her that he is a man.
Laughing, Ihei suggests wearing a rash guard or perhaps showing her back to look more like a gangster.
Yeol is momentarily paralyzed and blushes intensely as he imagines Ihei showing her back. Do-gyum asks what is wrong with her back to make her say that, but she tells him she was joking.
Uncle Oh notes that her safety is guaranteed and she should wear whatever she wants, while Ihei feels the vibe is off.
Do-gyum tells the group to do well on their exams first before discussing the trip. A final thought suggests that past mistakes might be too great for a certain goal to be reached.
Ihei apologizes for a past conversation, but Do-gyum insists he's the one who should apologize.
Do-gyum confidently offers to show his back to her, and Ihei agrees it's perfectly fine. The scene transitions to the quiet of night as seen through a bedroom window.
Do-gyum lies awake in bed, his arm draped over his face while lost in pot.
A memory of Ihei blushing and smiling warmly flashes through Do-gyum's mind as he thinks.
In the flashback, Ihei reassures Do-gyum that his physical scars don't bother her at all.
Returning to the present, Do-gyum remains in bed, deeply affected by the memory of her.
In the memory, Ihei smiles kindly while asking if he's merely pretending to be okay.
Do-gyum mentally tells Ihei not to worry about him as he processes his lingering feelings.
Staring at the ceiling, Do-gyum looks resolute as he continues to reflect on her kindness.
He vows to personally deal with anyone who carelessly brings up the topic of her scars.
2 days later, Ihei complains about the lack of free study time during PE class.
At the water fountain, Ihei turns in surprise after noticing a hand reaching out toward her.
Do-gyum asks to share her handkerchief, jokingly asking if she finds him too dirty to use.
Ihei explains the handkerchief is already wet while affectionately running her hand through Do-gyum's hair.
Do-gyum lifts his shirt to reveal his abs, suggesting she use his clothes to dry off.
Shocked by the display, Ihei tells him to stop and ends up holding onto him tightly.
Do-gyum laughs and questions why she is hugging him tighter despite her apparent shock and embarrassment.
Calling him impure, Ihei turns on the faucet to splash him for his shameless, playful behavior. Do-gyum laughs as Ihei splashes him, teasingly asking if she is attempting to perform an exorcism. The two engage in a playful water fight, with Ihei laughing joyfully as she runs away.
Watching her, Do-gyum realizes that he loves it most when Ihei is laughing and smiling brightly.
Do-gyum resolves to make sure that she is able to keep smiling like that forever from now on.
Ihei turns back to him with a happy expression, clearly enjoying their lighthearted moment together. Do-gyum splashes more water on Ihei, prompting her to complain about the sudden cold sensation.
Do-gyum teases a shivering Ihei, claiming that the person who shows their back first is the loser. A sudden scream echoes through the air, drawing immediate attention to the two students nearby.
Two girls watch the scene from a distance, looking completely horrified by what they see.
Someone reacts with disgust at the sight of the large, red, blood-like stains on Ihei's shirt.
Ai turns around with a confused expression, completely unaware of the disturbing marks on her back.